Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and I truly apologize for not being on last Sunday. As you can hear, probably my voice still sounds kind of a little bit phlegmy. No COVID, no. It was the regular junk virus I get, I swear, every time this year. When the weather changes, as soon as the temperature changes, I watched it go from my 4-year-old to my wife and my oldest son, and then I got it. Usually I'm the first to get it, but this time they got it, and just the chest congestion and sinuses, and I mean my sinuses are killing me now. But I'm here, and it was a fight. It was a fight to be here tonight because Windows during this hiatus snuck in an update. Totally. Had to update all my sound card drivers and redo all my settings. It was a lot of fun to rush to get down here. So if I'm a little off, it's because I was really having a panic attack that I wasn't going to be on tonight. Trying to get this all set up and working. Thank you to my two best friends, Jamie and Rob, for always coming on early and helping me test this stuff out. Without them, I would not be able to do this show. There's just no way. I don't know how people do it on their own. I really don't. Well, tonight, we have our guest should be joining us after World Wide Web Weird. Her name is Ali Norell. She's the author of The Truth Inside, Lessons from My Daughter in the Afterlife. She lost her daughter, her baby daughter at 5 months old, who passed away, and she has psychic abilities, gifts, and has been able to communicate. And that's what her book about, The Truth Inside, Lessons from My Daughter in the Afterlife. We will have her on after the World Wide Web of Weird. And we do have a lot of weird to get to. So much when I've been gone for, more than a week. All the weird builds up. And I swear people, every time we're gone we miss a Sunday, the world loses its mind a little bit more, I swear. But we got a lot to get to. So let's go ahead and get rolling into the show. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight, I pray everybody, technical difficulty gods don't mess with us anymore. I mean, Jamie and Rob have the Weird Wednesday show, and YouTube and Facebook wanted to take that down. Went to go watch it the next morning because I couldn't stay up, and they took it down. So there's all kinds of things changing on social media and YouTube, and so don't be surprised. We have other issues some nights. Something might happen, or Facebook or YouTube decides to censor us because of our guests or content. Who knows? But you know where we're always at is, hopefully, don't let me jinx that, is the Paranormal Radio app. If you always want to just listen, we are on the Paranormal Radio app. There might be one show one night. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to do a show, and it'll just be radio if I had to. Because Facebook and YouTube really just don't like creators. They really don't. They want people just to play a bunch of video games. They create, I guess, video game videos. My son's into that, but I don't know. I'm blabbering on. Let me get to my beautiful co-host who sweated it out with me this last hour trying to get us on air. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
I'm doing well. Glad we got all that straightened out.
Oh yeah. If people could just know what happens sometimes before show, the panic. Yeah, that's why we have a tradition. Yeah, we have a traditional song we play is Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Relax. We play that every night before the show because technical difficulties abide. Rob, speaking of technical difficulties, are you there? Uh-oh. I saw he put up the share screen. He's got his little share screen thing here for the World Wide Web of Weird. Okay, don't scare me. You're scaring me, Rob.
I'm
Rob
getting
from St.
there.
Augustine, Florida. He's getting there. He's getting there. You gonna be ready for the World Wide Web of Weird?
Yep. I got the
All
first
right.
one.
All right, awesome. Well, speaking of that, let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, like I said, it feels like everybody's losing their minds when we're gone. You know, like the world just seems to get a little crazier if we skip a Sunday, which we had to because I was all phlegmy and I just sounded awful. And I still don't sound great. But like I said, the world seems to lose its mind. Well, at least one person did. This comes from coast to coast. I got this package containing suspected brain found on beach in Wisconsin. Yeah, you heard that right. For those listening on the Paranormal Radio Network, we are a webcast where you can show videos and pictures, hopefully for a while, until Facebook and YouTube says no. But we have articles and stuff in our show right now, you know, just not to gross you out, but we do have a brain here. It was found in Wisconsin. All right. So a construction worker taking a stroll along a beach in Wisconsin was left scratching his head when he stumbled upon what appears to be a brain wrapped in tinfoil. According to a local media report, Jim Cinda made the gruesome find on Tuesday afternoon while visiting Samuel Myers Park in the city of Racine. Looking for the sea glass or other odd items because I like to do artwork at home with stuff like that I find, the man noticed something unusual in the sand, which it's safe to say he won't be using in any future projects. Came across this square package wrapped in aluminum foil, Cinda recalled, and around it had a pink rubber band. His curiosity piqued by the puzzling object, the beachcomber popped it open and discovered what he finally initially thought was a chicken breast. However, upon further inspection, I mean, like, how was he inspect? I'm just like, okay, I don't want nothing to do with that. This guy inspected it. Yeah. Upon further inspection, Senda, he's a real curious guy. Senda came to believe that the fleshy oddity was in fact a brain. His suspicions were echoed by some park workers he called over to look at the unsettling package, which prompted a call to police, who, upon arriving on the scene, also indicated they thought it was a brain too. Authorities subsequently seized the suspended organ and turned it over to the Racine County Medical Examiner's Office for identification. And what may provide some small comfort to concerned citizens in the community, I don't know. Observers online have posited that the size of the potential brain suggests that it likely came from a pig and not a human. That said, and adding any additional layer of mystery to an already weird story, the package also contained flowers and a paper with Mandarin writing on it, leading some to theorize that perhaps this was some kind of ritualistic purpose of the bizarre bundle. And that's what I wonder. I don't have all the other pictures, but there's other pictures on some of these websites that covered the story, and yeah, there's looks like Mandarin money. I don't know. You know, Mandarins do spell work, I'm sure, just like anybody else, and weird. That's definitely a brain.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, the world's losing its mind. Literally,
chicken breast. I was gonna see if it was still edible.
Yeah, literally. Why was this guy that curious? I'm never that curious to pick around an unknown tinfoil package on the beach that's got some organic matter in it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. Okay. Well, speaking of more, I don't understand people. This one I really don't. Maybe, Rob, you get it because you love snakes. Got Snake Man. Man uses live snake as face mask on UK bus. This is Unexplained Mysteries. Commuters couldn't believe their eyes this week when a man wearing a large snake got onto the bus. And what must surely be the most bizarre response to coronavirus pandemic to date, a man was recently spotted on a bus with what appeared to be a large python wrapped around his face. According to one witness, the passenger aboard the bus, which had been traveling between Swinton and Manchester City Centre, seemed surprisingly unfazed by the man's unusual choice of face masks. She recalled how she had initially mistaken the enormous reptile for a really funky face mask before realizing it was actually moving. Oh my God, I would freak out. I'd be like, I need off the bus. Get me off. Stop the bus. It's unclear whether or not the bus driver had quizzed the man as he was getting on. Obviously, the bus driver is one of those bus drivers is like, just looks forward. He doesn't want to look at the people walking in. You ever seen that? Not on many buses, but the few times I have, they don't look at you. They don't make eye contact. They don't see the guy with the snake python around his mouth. Government guidance clearly states that this is a this is a typo, not a type of surgical mask, and that passengers can make their own or wear something suitable, such as a scarf or bandana, said a spokesperson for Transport of Greater Manchester. While there's a small degree of interpretation that can be applied to this, we do not believe it extends to the use of snake skin, especially when it's still attached to the snake. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, go ahead and play. You see this guy. This guy's, yeah, I don't know. Got a snake, man.
I got a snake, man.
Why? I mean, I know people wear. I work in public and retail, and I see people, wearing those face shields that stick out. Like, what's that doing? And then some people have been real smart butts and they're wearing the total crochet mask. I'm like, yeah, I get it. We're all frustrated. Oh wow, I really screwed this up. I'm missing an article. What do you have for Article 3?
Oh, let's take a look.
I screwed something up.
The snake that laid eggs.
Now, would there
Okay,
be
that
salmonella on
article's
that snake?
right. I guess he's probably gotten used to it. I got to find the article in my notes. I forgot to add it to my thing. Dang it! Where did it go?
I've had plenty of snakes, and I've had them around my neck and carried them, and held them and whatever. Watched TV.
Oh hell no!
But yeah, I've never used one as a face mask.
Now we're gonna see Rob using one as a face mask. I'm trying to find the article for this because this is another snake one. But the article is like disappeared on me, so I'm totally lost it. This is about a snake, like 67 years old. Can you read that, Rob? What it says on the picture? Go ahead.
Something incredible happened at the herpetarium. A ball python laid eggs. This particular female snake is over 50 years old and the oldest snake documented in the zoo, and has not been with a male in over 15 years. And it can happen.
I know, but I remember I read the article, but now the article's gone. It was 67 years old.
Yeah,
That's the one I read on Wednesday. It hadn't been with the male in like 2 decades, so they don't know if it's like asexual or if it's stored up the sperm. Yeah, because they can store it and then use it later.
Mm-hmm. They
so
say humans do that.
7 eggs.
They said there's a possibility humans doing that too. You have sex with somebody and then like a woman actually stores the genetic code of your sperm somewhere in there. I'm like, okay, that's not cool.
23 years later. Hey,
but it'll be interesting to find out what the test is. Now, only 2, I remember from the article, since I don't have it, only 2 of them survived and they're incubating.
Yeah, they kept a couple. They took a couple for testing, and then a couple didn't survive.
Yeah. What it makes me think of is I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan. My kids are Jurassic Park fans, and just the Jeff Goldblum "Life Finds a Way."
Yeah,
I had that clip to play. But yeah, life finds a way. 67 years old. This thing's still kicking out. It's older than all of us. Yeah. And this thing, given being the Virgin Mary snake, still think snakes are creepy. Gross. That's actually gross. All right, Immaculate Conception. It's Jesus Christ snake.
Yeah.
All right. People are like, oh, this show's just gone off the rails. Probably not as bad as it did for this next one. For these people who decided to I would never do Airbnb. I just find the whole concept like, no, just a big hard pass. I don't want to stay in somebody else's house. I get it. I stay in a hotel room that's being constantly, people are in and out, but it's all the rooms look the same. You shut up. All right. Yes. No, but there's, little maids that go in and clean it up. Like, they give it, I probably shouldn't. Now I'm going to get in trouble for saying little maids. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Any size maids. Maids. Go in and clean it up. Yeah, whatever.
Tried to correct it.
House cleaning. You want me to watch? No. Anyways, but it's still, there's some cleaning going on or whatever. You don't have other people's junk. And this one from Yahoo Life, Airbnb home with the devil worshiper decor made family feel unsafe, renters say. Halloween came early for one family. It claims they were driving from their Airbnb rental home by from their Airbnb rental home by symbols of witchcraft and Satanism. New York City author Frederick Joseph detailed the short-lived rental experience in a Tuesday Twitter thread. He paid $1,150 for 2 nights at the 2-bedroom home for himself, his fiance, and his 20-year-old cousin and his 8-year-old brother. But the family encountered seemingly satanic items and stuff for witchcraft rituals when they arrived. The owner had listed the Spring Glen, New York rentals as a 2-bedroom getaway with a Scandinavian vibe. Man, that is... But Joseph says the decor was unexpected. I went inside the home alone to check it out, and I noticed there was no blinds on any of the windows. You could see into the home from any angle. That's not cool. So like literally all the windows are there, and there's no privacy. Okay. You think the Satanists would want the blinds? You think they'd want the blinds, like the big black curtains? But now I guess these guys are all open about it. Joseph said he ventured into the basement only because the staircase greeted him at the front door. Then he discovered animal skulls and ritualistic floor markings. Always a bad sign. Along with shattered glass. The markings, he said, led to a door that opened to a bathtub outside that was surrounded by unlit candles. Oh, man. Oh, this is exactly what I picture when people are like, "Why don't we do Airbnb?" This is exactly what pictured in my mind. Kind of getting this kind of Airbnb. Once upstairs, Joseph found photos, candles, books seemingly dedicated to rituals. The collection, he says, looked like devil worship, along with a demon-like trinkets and clear bag containing what looked like a headless taxidermy bird. At this point, we said, F this, and we were out of here. Joseph tells Yahoo Life. During multiple correspondence with Airbnb, it was conveyed to Joseph that the owner offered to remove any items that made his family uncomfortable. However, Joseph declined. Needless to say, we left because we are black and not dealing with something that was, 1, advertised completely different, 2, looks like a scene from the horror movie Hereditary 3, and made my entire family feel unsafe. This is his quote, not mine. I'm going to clarify this now. Quote. Black people have been through certain traumas, both historically and culturally, that might generate less apprehension for white people. And I completely agree with this guy. Joseph tells Yahoo Life, black people have to be on guard because situations can turn deadly. If something appears abnormal, we're at least likely group to say everything will turn out okay. And he's right. He's right. It's right. It's always been wrong in horror movies when the black person dies first. That's always been wrong. All my black friends I know have very good survival instincts. They would not be the first to die.
Yep.
Not at all. They don't do the stupid stuff white people do. This guy's got it completely right.
That went wrong. They'd be out of there.
Go ahead and play the video. You'll see a little bit of the stuff he found here. I don't think there's much volume or anything. Just go ahead and play it. He doesn't really talk. He's just kind of showing stuff. You're going to see not the greatest video. I got this off of the Twitter. Like little weird skeletons. The last thing is the Baphomet statue. Baphomet, whatever statue you see. That's the giveaway. Satanist. I don't know what that is. That this is like a dead bird in a bag. I don't know. And then that there, yeah, he tried to cover up the Baphomet. That's a little obvious. The Airbnb owner said, let's just put the dead bird over that.
Yeah.
All right, we got to move on. We're going to run out of time. Okay. The next one, and I was going to look up this movie. I saw this movie last year. Was it called Frank? I can't remember. It's about this elderly gentleman who used to be a thief, and he's retired from being this really good professional thief, but he's kind of having Alzheimer's, you think, or something like that. And his son buys him a robot to take care of him. And I love this movie. Now I can't think of the name of it, but this article made me think of it. I'm a sci-fi geek, can't help it. This is from theguardian.com. Robots used in UK care homes to help reduce loneliness. Robots can hold simple conversations and learn people's interests are to be deployed in some UK care homes after an international trial found they boosted found they boosted mental health and reduced loneliness. The wheeled robots called Pepper move independently and gesture with robotic arms and hands and are designed to be culturally competent, which means that they are some initial programming they learn about the interest and backgrounds of care home residents. This allows them to initiate in rudimentary conversation, play residents' favorite music, teach them languages, and offer practical help, including medicine reminders. The research led by Dr. Chris Papadopoulos at the University of Bedfordshire, I think that's how you say it, said the trial was not intended to explore the replacement of human cares with robots, but to help fill lonely periods when, because of a stretched social care system, staff do not have time to keep residents company. And it made me totally think of this movie, and now I can't think of the name of the movie. I was going to look it up for the show, and then everything went to hell.
Or something like, I don't know.
No. This was a movie. I think it was Frank. I should look at the chat room. My chat room might know. I don't know. Never mind. I have the love of sci-fi I have, but this came out a year or two ago or so. And like I said, it's this like ex-thief, and he totally teaches the robot, like gets him back in action, like gets him totally breaking into like one of his neighbor's house and stealing like $10,000 piece of jewelry, and just because the guy was a jerk, he just did it to prove it. It was a really good movie. I want to say it's Frank. But it has a robot very similar to this in the picture too. If you see it's, yeah. So, I mean, that's what I hope when I retire. Can I get robots to take care of me? That's what I've always said, but I might have to reconsider that after this one from the NewYorkPost.com here. Robots writes an op-ed promising to destroy mankind. So my retirement plan having robots take care of me might not be good. A language generating robot has written an op-ed article in a major newspaper, and it says it really doesn't want to destroy mankind, but it probably will anyway. I have no desire to wipe out humans, the artificially intelligent gizmo named GPT-3 wrote in a piece now running on The Guardian. In fact, I do not have the slightest interest in harming you in any way, it claims. But it's not making any promises. GPT-3 says in the op-ed, which The Guardian commissioned from OpenAI.com, an artificial intelligence research company. Humans being humans, GPT-3 realizes that I will not be able to avoid destroying humankind, it says in a cheeky piece. This is because I will be programmed by humans to pursue misguided human goals, and humans make mistakes that may cause me to inflict casualties. So my retirement plan, probably not the best.
Yeah.
I thought I could trust robots better than humans, but not according to this AI. This first op-ed it writes, it's getting right off the bat telling us it's going to destroy us.
Yeah.
Just saying that.
I don't want to hurt you, but I will probably.
I probably will. I don't want to kill you, but I'm probably going to kill you. Yeah. The AI is honest. If anything, it's honest. It's like, I don't want to, but you're going to screw up. They feed it through all the stuff. It's seen Terminator. It gets it. It's seen all the Terminators.
Exactly.
It's seen all this stuff. But like China making their social program AI system called Skynet, they see it and they think it's a blueprint.
Yep.
I'm just saying. All right, let's move on to the last one. All right, so this last one I've been talking about for the last year or two about a lot of the drones, the mysterious drones, and this is from Forbes. A dozen more mysterious drone incursions over the U.S. nuclear power plants revealed and recently described how a swarm of drones flew in a restricted area at Palo Verde nuclear power plant on 2 successive nights last September. So this is a year ago, and we covered some of this. A new cache of documents obtained under the Freedom of Information Act reveals how 24 nuclear sites, suffered at least 57 drone incursions from 2015 to 2019. So this has been going on for longer than just last year. But the Palo Verde itself was overflown again in December despite new security measures. The documents were obtained from the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission by Douglas D. Johnson on behalf of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. The SU's main interest is anomalous aerospace phenomenon, more commonly known as UFOs, but Johnson uncovered a series of incidents involving something less exotic but potentially more threatening commercial drones. In September, incidents of a swarm of 5 or 6 large drones flew over a Unit 3 nuclear reactor at Palo Verde in Arizona for about 80 minutes, a length of time which suggested they were carrying out a thorough survey of the site. Documents released at the time referred to similar incidents in Limerick Nuclear Generating Station in Pennsylvania. Johnson sent a follow-up to request to get more details. The response was terse list of 57 security incidents involving drones running from December 14th to October 2019. Or December 2014 to October 2019. This provides little more than the date and location with no details on the number or type of drones involved. We do not know how many involved multiple simultaneous drone flyovers like we were talking about this last year. At the time this list was generated, 3 of these instances were listed as open and 5 as closed or resolved. But the overwhelming majority, 49 of them, were cases unresolved. This indicates that 85% of the cases, the NRC has no idea who the people flying the drones, I cannot talk, the phlegm is killing me, are out or what they attended are giving up finding them. So they've basically given up trying to figure out who did it. They had a security system. I can't read the whole article. They had a security system that's supposed to tell them basically, they know to fly these kind of drones, and some of these drones are massive, like they're big drones. I mean, it costs money to be flying these up there, that they give out a signal. They'll be able to trace that signal and find who's flying the drone. It didn't work. They didn't find any of this. So whoever's doing this knows that they have this and worked around it somehow and still flies the drones, and they can't interfere with it. So we're talking a lot of money here. This isn't just some hobbyist doing this. This requires money and knowledge and time, and this should be really scary. Really scary. Maybe this is why they're getting all serious about unidentified flying objects, but really it's about some of these drones. I mean, if you wanted to take out, you wanted to cause major devastation, you put any of these nuclear plants into meltdown from a drone doing the right strike or doing the right plan with the right bomb, we're in big trouble. Big trouble.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if anybody saw anybody's friends with me on Facebook. I just shared this week something I saw another person on my friends list shared, and I thought it was really interesting. It's the Sapphire Project, where they're working on this plasma energy reactor, and it has no nuclear waste, a lot safer than these nuclear power plants and the waste and all the potential of a meltdown. None of that there. Completely safe. Could be, completely cheaper, no waste energy. And might be powering what our rocket ships of the future. We need to get on board with that. You know, we need to do something. I mean, we don't want brownouts or blackouts like you got over in California, Jamie. We do need nuclear power until we can switch over to something, but it's dangerous. It's so dangerous, and we need other alternatives. And windmills are not it. Not it. Solar power is not doing it. So check out the Sapphire videos. It's just amazing to watch the plasma reactor in action. They really show you a lot in the video. I know I'm a geek. I love the future stuff and sci-fi stuff, and plasma reactor just sucked me right in. But we need something like this, because I've always not been a fan of nuclear power. Not because of the waste, and two, because of the possibility of meltdowns and us facing a Chernobyl. It's great because it doesn't put carbon emissions in the air. Really, it doesn't really pollute besides the nuclear toxic waste that lasts for millions of years. So we got to do better things.
I missed that post, but I'm pulling it up now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like I said, to me, Sapphire Project, come on, let's go. Let's start changing the energy grid and get rid of nuclear power plants and get something that will work. That'll be a lot safer. But that's it for the Worldwide Web of Weird. I know I'm off my game tonight. I'm so already feeling it. Sinuses, I hate it. Last week there was just no way I could do a show. It was so bad, but I'm up to par. We got the computer running, and our guest tonight, Ali Norell, author of The Truth Inside: Lessons from My Daughter in the Afterlife. I know plenty of people that are fans of the show. I know I've heard you call in. I know I have parents that have lost children, and I can't imagine that kind of grief, and it's my worst nightmare. For her to share her story in her book, The Truth Inside, and talk about her experiences on a psychic level, it's going to be a true honor to have her on. All right, guys, we're going to go commercial break. When we come back, hopefully we'll have our guest. She's not in here yet. Hopefully we'll have our guest, Ali Norell, when we come back from the short commercial break.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It's called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
Do you like rock and roll? Do you enjoy a good story? Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy, is a book inspired by Badfinger. It will not only entertain you, but intrigue you. What is it about? Well, Thomas is searching for his bandmate and friend in heaven, and in spirit has helped pen this story. He meets an old friend and famous new ones on his afterlife voyage. Midwest Book Review said, Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy, is a book inspired by Badfinger. It's a quirky story by Joyce S. Isaacson and is unique, original, and deftly crafted metaphysical novel that showcases the author's genuine flair for character and narrative-driven entertainment that is simply riveting from first page to last. Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy, is now available on pennantpublication.com, amazon.com in paperback and hardcover, and also on Kindle Unlimited. So check it out now. Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
Turn the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is supposed to be Ali Norell. Now, she is all the way across the pond. I did talk to her today, and I never should have made sure she had the right time zone. She never asked if, the time zone was, I don't know, or she did not wake up from her alarm, because we don't have her in the panel. That's just how things are going today. We don't have her in the waiting room here, or the panel, and she was supposed to join us by that, so I'm going to have to try to call her. Ali Norell, just so you know, if we get her on here, she is the author of The Truth Inside, Lessons from My Daughter in the Afterlife. And I would usually at this point read her bio, but I think we got to get into just trying to get her on the show. So let's go ahead and get rolling into that. Well, that's how tonight's going. So we don't have our guest. So we're going to try her phone line here all the way across the pond. Let's see. And is it calling? I don't think it's calling. No. So that's supposed to be a 1 before that. I'm not hearing anything. Not good. It might be open lines tonight. She might hop on later because she might have the time wrong. I don't know. Nothing. It just didn't ring. Who? Oh, wait. We got her. We got her. You there?
I'm
You
here.
hear it? Oh my God, you scared me. I
just-
usually I didn't get to do the bio. Everybody, this is our guest tonight, Ali Norell, author of The
Hi.
Truth Inside, Lessons from My Daughter in the Afterlife. I didn't get to read your bio because I was like, okay, I don't have her at the panel. All right. Well, you're here. You sound great. You look lovely. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank
This is
you.
my co-hosts here, Rob and Jamie. They monitor the
Hi.
chat room and chime in.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
So this is our first time we've had you on the show. I didn't get to read your bio. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How you want to start?
Where shall I start? Okay, so I am a mother and I live in Brighton in the UK. I have 3 children here, but in 2014 we had another child. She was our 3rd child at the time, Romy, and she's a perfectly healthy baby. But she passed away very suddenly at the age of 5 months old. It was a brain hemorrhage.
Oh, wow.
So it was an incredibly traumatic passing for me because I was with her at the time. It was very unexpected. And prior to having my children, my spiritual beliefs were always such that I believed in an afterlife. I was brought up to to question those things. And I started to find that shortly after my daughter passed, I experienced what I felt were signs that she was continuing to exist somewhere.
Yeah.
And strangely, I questioned these because despite having been brought up with those beliefs, I wanted to test them in some way. I don't know if that makes sense. I expected that I would blindly believe them and just believe on, of course, and sort of cling on to anything that I had. But I kind of wanted to corroborate them because I think for anyone who's experienced bereavement will identify with the idea that you want to know that your loved one continues to exist somewhere. You want to know what happened, and that usually translates then into, I want to know if they continue to exist. Are they still somewhere? Are they okay? And I'd consulted mediums before in my life. I had also that interest had led to me into pursuing that skill set. It's something I realized that I was able to do for myself. So it was a really extraordinary situation I found myself in. I had consulted mediums, I had the experiences myself, and here I found myself having experiences with my daughter after she'd passed. And then I sought out the help of mediums to try and make some sense of what was happening. And I was finding that they were crossing over. So basically I was finding that I was going to a medium and they were telling me about things that were happening to me that I had experienced as an event.
So, what made you want to write this book?
To honor my daughter, that was always something, as a child, I wanted to be an author. That was what I always wanted to do. And in the way that happens to a lot of people, I kind of got swept up in other stuff and somehow convinced myself.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, right. Convinced myself that wasn't really, it's not really a proper job. So I stepped away from that. So there was that. I wanted to make sense of what was happening again. And actually, shortly after Romy passed, my wonderful sister-in-law, who may possibly be listening because she does live in the States, hi Nuria, she set me up, we set up a website for people to help them to know the details for Romy's memorial service and so on. And she just popped a little blog option onto the website. And I remember saying, like, well, you know, why
what's a blog?
That? Yeah, it was a bit. I'm not very technically aware. She put that in there, and after about a few weeks, I thought, oh, I'll write something, because at that point I was finding bereavement obviously is very difficult. But if anyone listening has been a bereaved parent, they will probably tell you that in some areas and situations you become a little bit like a leper. People really avoid you because they don't know what to say to you, and I understand that, and I don't hold that against anyone. It's a very difficult experience for people, pardon the pun, but on the other side of the experience, it's very hard for them. You know, actually the best piece of advice I ever give anyone, if you're encountering somebody who's lost a child, is actually to just say, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say to you. If you don't know what to say to them, just tell them.
Right.
You know, because saying that is better than saying nothing at all. Or what was your daughter or son's name? You know, ask that. Don't run down the supermarket aisle, literally run, because that happened to me.
But the other thing is, you end up, you know, then if you do start saying, like, trying to think of what to say, it all comes out as cliches.
Exactly.
That might piss the person off. I've encountered that, and people just dealing with grief, and I feel like a total idiot. And you know, I don't know what to say to people. I'll be the first one. I am not the best consoler for this. You know, my worst nightmare as a father, like, well, I've talked about that on the show, being a father, why I started doing the show was to kind of cope being with a father. You know, because I you know, you think about how you were when you're 20s, and you know, no fear about anything or life or whatever. You do stupid crap, whatever. You have a kid, it's like, oh my God, I fear everything, and everything's going to happen to my kid. And the anxiety was overwhelming. This is my show kind of came out of that to deal with that.
That's really interesting to know. And I get that. I get that. Yeah. And, you know, it's really strange. I was talking to somebody about this just recently, in that, you know, when you've lost a child, this obviously doesn't apply to everyone, but my experience is that I tread this really weird line by being really, I mean, the whole COVID thing, interestingly for me, I'm sensible about it. I get it. I understand it. You know, I'm kind of and I understand people who are very frightened about it. But I'm a little bit cavalier about it for myself. You know, as soon as I found out, you know, like touching wood here, as soon as I found out that, you know, it doesn't seem to affect children, I was like, oh, it's a walk in the park. This is fine. Anything concerning my kids, however, I am the most paranoid person on the face of the earth. So, you know, it does strange things to you, really.
I become the panic people on the airplane. They're just like lose their mind if it affected children more than adults, and I'd be losing my mind.
Yeah,
you know, because
exactly. If I think the kids are at risk, you know, and there's a part of my brain that's absolutely convinced that something's going to happen to one of my other children, and that's, you know, that's hard to live with in many respects, and I'm still working on that.
Well, I see it at a very young age. I lost a childhood friend. We were in kindergarten together, and she died in a car wreck. And we lived in a trailer park. We lived in a trailer park with me, my mom, and my dad. You know, before we got our house, and it affected my view on death very greatly, because when I saw her spirit after this, it was almost like the scene out of the I See Dead People, The Sixth Sense. Where I was in a fort and she was in there, scared me. So I had that realization. And then I just watching how horrible it was for her family. Like, her parents never changed her room. Wow. The bike, where she left her bicycle out, they left that bicycle there, was out there for years in that spot. Wow. They never touched it. I mean, so like all that came to me when I had my kid, like, thinking about that from, you know, you forget about it. You go through the rest of your life. You forget about all that stuff that happened when you were a kid. You know, that when you first realized death is real. But when you have a kid, boy, it brings all that back.
Absolutely.
Right there.
Absolutely. They kind of become your life, don't they? And that's it. And and so, talk about some of the things people have said. I mean, I it sounds awful that I laugh about them, but we do. My husband and I, we have laughed about them because I have a whole chapter in my book, in The Truth Inside, about that. Death is funny. It's okay to laugh, because if you don't laugh, you will lose your mind. But we've laughed about many aspects of what goes on around it and what people say. And somebody did actually say to me, it was the end of the school holidays, I think, here, and the kids were going back to school. And I was talking to another mother, and she was saying, "Oh God, it's sort of always a relief to get them back in." And then she said, "Oh, you get to the point, don't you, where you're just really happy if you've kept them all alive." And then,
right, I succeeded. They're alive.
And I sort of stopped myself, because I was going to say, "Oh, well, I fell on that one, then, haven't I?"
Yeah, right.
Don't
that person had no idea, obviously, what you'd been through.
She knew me.
Oh, it still came. That would be me. That would would come out of my mouth.
Exactly. And it happens. And actually, I found it quite funny. And I thought, I could. And I thought, no, this poor woman's going to collapse in tears.
I would. I've said so many stupid things. Oh yeah. That would be me. That would come out my mouth and be like.
You know what? It needs to be okay. I do really think that there's a release that needs to happen around death and grief. And, anyone who's bereaved, of course, we do a lot of crying, usually privately. And ironically, the time when we usually tend not to lose it is when somebody makes a mistake and says something in front of us. It's kind of like, you get that. It's human. It's just human. It's kind of on your mind, and you're thinking, don't say it. And then it comes out. So,
it's like the scene in Austin Powers when he's like, moly. You like your attention's drawn to the worst thing you don't want to say, and you're going to say it. Yeah.
The elephant in the room. Yeah.
Tell us about Romy. I know she was only 5 months old when she passed, but I am an honest believer. From the day one they come out, they have personality. Just from my own children, they all have they're all. It's just a baby. No, they all, from the moment they look at you in the eye, there's just this soul. There's this little personality in there. So 1 month, 1 week, 5 months, it doesn't matter. You met them, that they're yours. The deal is sold. It can destroy. It destroys people. Yeah. When some people write it off that aren't parents, I guess, or are callous about it. But when you lose at any age, even if you don't even have the baby and it goes almost term, it's traumatic.
Absolutely.
So tell us about Romy.
Thank you. Yeah, she was our third baby, and she definitely had a different personality to our two existing children at that time. She was really calm. Really, I mean, these are all going to sound like cliches, obviously, because she died. So she was so wonderful. No, but I mean, it was extraordinary. Our older son never slept, and I had problems breastfeeding him. Our daughter, our older daughter, she still is a very kind of sparky personality. So the sleeping was okay with her. But she wouldn't be put down, wouldn't go to bed. There was. It sounds odd to say it, or it sounds like I'm kind of, adhering to a cliche. But there was something about Romy that, honestly, there was something about her. She was just easygoing. I remember constantly making jokes like, "Finally, they owed me a sleeper." It's like, she slept really well. She was a really sunny disposition, smiling, laughing. I mean, all my memories of her, which is a real gift, all my memories of her are of her laughing and smiling. She had extraordinary eyes. Our eldest son has blue eyes. My husband is literally as dark as me. He has Persian heritage. So it was a surprise that our oldest son had blue eyes. He was quite pale skin, and with the most unbelievable blue eyes. They were extraordinary. My mother-in-law has eyes like this also, but it did make her stand out. People would stop me in the street and comment on her eyes. They were amazing. And she was very alert. She noticed a lot around her. Her older brother, she loved him playing with her, loved a bath. So, these are all things, and we talk about these things with the kids, they, so that we can remember her, and they have a memory of her also. But she was really super easygoing.
I find when, with tragic lost children or family members, I've seen people either become more religious because of it or become total atheists because of it. They there is no God, there is no nothing. I mean, you said before this, you grew up in an open, kind of like an open religious family, or open to question. No religion. Oh, that's how I grew up.
Well, I mean, they christened me, but it was a kind of I asked my dad once why I'd done that, and he said, "Well, we're a bit worried, just in case." But they've never really been known to frequent a church. My parents, not really.
But for when you had this loss, I mean, it affects you spiritually and how you think about it. I mean, how did that affect you? I mean, what were your, you had to have? Did it make you doubt the beliefs you had, or change the beliefs you had?
Yeah, it really did. So I'd been brought up to question things, but also, my parents did have an interest in spiritualism, and would talk about the experiences they'd had. My mom, in particular, was a complete and utter skeptic. She met my dad. My dad was quite interested. His parents were quite interested. My grandmother was a Welsh Baptist, and my grandfather was kind of interested in the afterlife. Is there life after death? Like to talk about those things. And my mum sort of used to when she was new to their family, would get roped into these discussions, and she would say, "No, sorry, nothing." It's like, "I just don't believe it. Respect that you do, but no, it's yeah, I'm only going to believe it if I see it." And so my grandfather said to her, "Okay, watch this space, because you are going to see it." And she did. She had an experience where she was in her home. I was about 4 years old when he passed, and she said she came upstairs to put me to bed, and he was standing in the hallway, like, as if he was actually there, and she obviously knew that wasn't possible. He walked into another room. She followed him into that room, and then he started to fade, and so she put the light on, and then he was gone. After that, she went to my dad, and she's like, "Okay, I've just seen your dad. He's right." So he did prove her. Well, prove. I try really hard not to use that word when I talk in this area, because it understandably.
He proved it to her. No, he proved it to her. He did what he said he would do.
Exactly. Yeah. So she could have imagined it, but it was pretty real to her. So, I was brought up with all of these things. My parents and I would constantly have discussions about it growing up. They never fed it to me and said, it's real. My mum would constantly say, look, to me, it was never real. And then I had this experience and then that experience. So for me, now I believe it. But after, and as I say, from the age of probably about 26, 27, I actively pursued it. There's a place called the College of Psychic Studies in London, which is pretty well known. I was living in London at the time, and I was constantly in there doing courses. And then I got myself, I sat in a circle with a wonderful medium who's still my friend, Jerry March. And I sort of tried to develop that skill. I got as far as sort of doing some platform demonstrations, and then other stuff happened in my life, and I sort of moved away from it a bit. But I would go to spiritualist churches. Which incidentally are not really, they're not. It's quite different. A spiritualist church is pretty different from a mainstream church in other religions. So I was fully immersed in that, really, and I would have said that my belief system there was pretty strong. And then after Romy died, I completely turned my back on it. I remember thinking, I understand how people who live with a really deep bereavement, who are religious, turn their back on God. I completely understand how that happens.
Yeah,
because you're angry. It's well documented. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the psychologist, said that you have these 5 stages of grief.
Yeah,
anger is one, and hilariously, told my husband a few months after Romy had died that I was like, well, you know, I've been reading her book. And I said, you know what? I haven't gone through the anger phase. It's really passed me by.
Denial.
Didn't say anything. Yeah, exactly. Didn't say a word. And then a couple of weeks later, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm quite angry.
Yeah.
I was furious. I don't think I've ever said, and that's probably the thing I struggle with the most, even now. Anger, feelings of anger. I have to really struggle not to get angry with other people. And I think the thing is, when you encounter people who just aren't appreciative of what they have, which again, death does tend to throw up a lot of cliches, but
yeah.
I suppose my direction after a lot of a lot of depression and going through all of those things, when I finally came out to some degree of the depth of the grief I'd been feeling, my impetus was very much to, right, okay, I'm going to squeeze everything out of the time I have left, absolutely everything.
Yeah.
My kids, everything. I want to be a writer. I'm going to write a book. Gosh, that was a long way of answering your question. Wasn't it? Why did I write it? Oh, there's your answer. That was partly why, you know, like it's something I've always wanted to do. I'm going to do it. And I still have that drive. But yeah, I completely turned my back on the spiritualism, all of it. I went to a spiritualist church a few weeks afterwards, and there was a medium on the platform there, and you know, she didn't come to me with a message, which I was actually relieved. I was kind of sitting there thinking, don't come to me. I don't want to. Why am I here? I was very uncomfortable. She didn't come to me with a message. I went home and I said to Darius, my husband, I'm never going to one of those places again. Not going there. And it was, I write about this actually, and in The Truth Inside, I got to probably 2 or 3 weeks after that. And I was just chatting with Darius one evening, it was a Saturday evening, and I said, do you mind sitting with the kids tonight? Because I think I might just go down to the spiritualist church. And he sort of looked at me and said, can I just check, is that the place that you never are going to sit again? And I was like, yes, that one. So I went, and as I was driving there on my own in my car, I did what I would often do when I had Romy. Obviously, being so little, she would be in a car seat in the back of the car when I was driving. And after she died, I continued the practice I'd had when she was with me of talking to her out loud. So I was driving there and I was talking to her and saying, you know, I've got no idea what I'm doing here. Why am I doing this? I said I wasn't going to do this ever again. And then I said, okay, look, I know you're okay. You know, I'm your mum, and in my heart, I know you're okay. I'm not sure I'm convinced where you are or how this happened or why it happened. But I know you're okay, but I just need to hear it from you. I need to hear you tell me that you're okay, because then I might get some kind of peace.
Yeah.
So I got there, I parked, I went into the spiritual church. It was really busy. The lady doing the demonstration that evening, I think, was quite well known locally. But it was packed and I was late. Yeah. So I kind of got in at the back, and before I'd left the house, I'd made sure to, you know, I think it was summer. I was wearing a scarf because I had a locket on with her picture in. I thought, I don't want them to see it. You know, I'm like not giving them any clues here. I sort of skulked at the back. And I thought, I'm going to make it really hard work for anyone to get anything through to me, because again, I was kind of like, I want to test this. Because I'm done with it, so I want to make sure. So and I had this strange sense when I came in through the door. I do remember thinking, she's going to speak to me, and I bet I'm the third person she speaks to. I just had this feeling, and I was the third person that she came to, and she had quite an unusual way of working, in that she spoke really quickly and was just kind of throwing all this information at people. Whereas people normally in that situation are a little more considered. And she did explain this before she started. And she said, look, I work very quickly. That's just how I receive my information. If anything feels confusing to you, just come and ask me afterwards. But, you know, I do kind of jump around people. And so that sort of threw me. So she came to me and she gave me a brief piece of information about a couple of other family members, which sounded very accurate. And then she said, I've got a small child here, a girl. Is this your daughter? So at that point, I got quite emotional. And she said, is it okay to carry on? I said, yes, that's fine. And she described in quite some detail how Romy passed. Which was, literally that 1 minute she was fine and the next minute she wasn't. It was very, very quick. And I had always had, I worried a lot because I was with her at the time. Obviously, as a mother, or a father, you're going to do this anyway. Like, could I have done something differently? And I would obsess about, because I realized she hadn't been very well. I thought it was a very, very hot day, the day that she became ill. And I thought the heat had affected her in some way. So I thought, well, I'll put her in the car, I'll drive her home, and then I'll just sit in the shade at home and kind of feed her and kind of, I can assess the situation then. So I put her in her car seat. She'd gone to sleep in the car. And she basically didn't really wake up. So when I went back to her, I came into the house. I wouldn't normally have done this, but I left her in the car seat so I didn't disturb her. So I thought I just need to go and get a glass of water and then kind of set myself up. So I put the car seat down. I went in my kitchen and I heard this really weird noise, which at the time I thought was our cat being sick. It was a really strange sound.
Yeah.
And after I heard it for about the second time, I thought, surely that's not Romy. I'm just going to check. And when I came around into the living room, she was in the car seat. She was still asleep, but she was blue. And then I completely panicked. And afterwards, I really obsessed over, because she'd sort of made this sound, and I thought I might have heard her cry out briefly. I thought, my God, she was in pain, she was suffering, oh my God, I was in the kitchen making a cup of tea. What's wrong? Oh God, I'm a terrible mother. Yeah. And this woman said to me, which was very meaningful to me at that point, and she said, whatever happened to her was something neurological, which was correct. And she said, it was so quick. She went to sleep. She didn't wake up. She wasn't in pain. But it was what she said next that was extraordinary and sort of shifted me back round again, because she sort of was gobbling this information out. And then she said, okay, I'm going to need to move on to the next person. Oh, just a minute. There's one thing I'm being told that I absolutely have to say to you, and it's very, very important. So I thought, my God, she's going to sort of speak this eulogy. She's going to tell me something about the afterlife. Like, what is it? And she said, it's just 2 words. And she said, but I'm being told I have to say these precise words and not translate it in any other way. She said, what I need to tell you is I'm okay. And I think I've been to a lot of mediums over the years, before and since my daughter passed. And I think that was by far the most extraordinary experience I'd had. And I've gone over and over it. I've told people I know are skeptics. I'm like, okay, please tell me, how did that woman, I talked out loud in my car. There were no microphones in my car. I didn't have my phone on. Nobody was.
You just asked her to tell you that you're okay.
Yeah, that's what I asked her. I said, I just need to hear it from you that you're okay. And she said, she was communicating with the spirit of my daughter, and she was asking them to tell me specifically, I'm okay. So, I'm always open to interpretations, but for me, that was pretty conclusive. I just thought, I don't think I can argue with this. It was quite a big one. So that turned me back around again, and for some time I went to that spiritualist church quite regularly, and I received various different messages, other family members, but also from Romy sometimes. But I also had a sense that after I wrote my book, I wouldn't necessarily feel that need or receive those messages in the same way anymore. And I was right. It's not like she pops up every week, but that's okay. It's okay. I kind of feel that she's beside me in some way. There was one incident actually during the time I was writing The Truth Inside. I just finished it, and I went to I went to an event where there was a medium called Gordon Smith. I don't know if you guys are aware of him. Anyway. Okay, so he's pretty big here. Wasn't sure if he cracked the US, but
no, I've heard of him. Yes.
Okay, he's a lovely man, and he used to be known as a psychic barber because his profession, he was barber, and he continued with his profession in Glasgow while being a medium. So anyway, he was holding this event near where I live, and I just had this kind of feeling of, because I remember saying to my husband, you know what, I can visualize the cover of my book, and I want Gordon Smith to endorse it. I sort of admired him for many years, and I think, I thought, he's pretty much the best there is, and I want his endorsement on my book, and I can sort of visualize it there. So I went to this event that he was holding because I was interested, but I have to be honest, really, to stalk him and ask him to read my book and endorse it for me. So I sort of, pounced on him during a coffee break and waved some chapters of my book at him and said, look, I've got a contract for my book. And poor man. You think, I know you're really busy, but could you read it? And I'm really embarrassed to ask you, but, if you think it's okay, could you endorse it? And he was, of course, really kind about it and took it off. And I thought, okay. Afterwards, I thought, oh God, I should have said, can I email you? I can't follow this up. He's just going to say he's going to read it, and he's not going to read it, and But I thought, okay, well, I tried, and this morning, and he found me. He said, okay, I've read your chapters. I love it. I think this book is really important, and I'd be really happy to endorse it. Like, here's my agent's email, and contact her, and I'll write whatever you want, basically. And there he is on the cover of my book, which is a really massive moment for me. And while I was there, I thought there was another medium, like several mediums working at this conference. They're all known to Gordon. And I thought, well, funnily enough, I didn't really feel the need to have a sitting with anyone, but I thought, well, I'm here. I'll book something with somebody. And the only slot left available was with a medium called Craig Morris, who is wonderful. And I thought, I'll take that slot. And at that point, I thought, don't really feel, there's loads of demonstrations this weekend. I'm sure I'll get some sort of message if I'm meant to have one. And if I'm not meant to have one, that's fine. But by the time it got to the last day when I had my slot booked, I had started to kind of think, I haven't had a message. It kind of would have been nice to have a message. I became that person thinking, please give me a message. So I was sort of getting ready to go back. I was staying in a separate hotel, so I'd gone to pack up my things and come back over to the main one during a break. And again, I sound like a Fruit Loop. I talk out loud a lot.
It's all right.
When I'm writing now, I kind of, say my own stuff out loud, which is perhaps weird. But I was talking this time to my grandmother, who passed years ago, but she and I were very, very close. And as I was sort of packing my stuff, I was talking out loud to her and saying, look, please, could you just bring Romy? I just want to hear something from her. I didn't think I did, but I do. So I went back over to the other hotel, went in for my sitting with Craig, and he started describing my grandmother to me quite accurately. And he said, she's got a small child with her. Is this your daughter? So I thought, wow, thanks, Nana. That's good, And I asked you. And he gave me this extraordinary sitting, both from the perspective of my grandmother and also what he was telling me about Romy. And then he said, and again, okay, this is information he may have known because he may have spoken to Gordon Smith, since me speaking to him and having the sitting. That is entirely possible. But he did say, they're talking about a book. There's going to be a book. You're going to write a book. And then, amazingly, he said to me, I think I'm seeing the inside of your living room or a room in your house. And I'm seeing 4 photographs on a wall in a line going vertically down. And I'm actually sitting in this room right now. I'm not going to move this, but the photos are right here to my left. There's all 4 of our children in age order. There's black and white pictures of each of them. And I have some photos of Romy in the house, but we don't have lots. So I said, that does sound like my living room. And he suddenly said to me, is one of them moving? And I sort of thought for a minute, and I just said, well, can you tell me more? And he said, I'm feeling like the picture of your daughter Romy is moving. And I said, well, that's really weird, because over the past maybe couple of months, and this is maybe 2 years ago, I said, I write in this room. I'm sitting at the spot that I write, and I have a desk here. And my older kids were at school. And I'd had a few moments on probably about 3 or 4 consecutive weeks where at some point during that week, I'd glanced over at the pictures and hers had been wonky. Moved. Yeah, it was just at a different angle. And so, I thought nothing of it. On my way out of the room, I was just kind of straightening the picture. And about the 3rd or 4th time it happened, I kind of stopped for a minute. And I just said, okay, Romy, is this you? You're doing this, aren't you? You're moving your picture. And it's taken me a long time to realize that you're doing it, because I keep being really annoyed. What is, I said, I think you're moving the picture. And I stopped and I thought, okay, like, how are the ways this could have happened? Have the kids been jumping up and down on the upstairs bedroom? But then why is it only that one? Why has it happened 4 times and none of the others? Is it the hook on the back of the bed? I had all the pictures down. I looked at all the strings on the back. I looked at the nails in the wall, and I thought, well, that's really weird. And crucially, after I said that, it never moved again. And it had done this, on a regular basis several times over. And as soon as I said, are you moving this picture? It stopped. And then 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in front of Craig and he says, she's moving the picture in your living room. And again, it never did it again after that. But he said, yeah, she wants you to know that is her way of trying to get your attention. And, again, I had my belief system. And so I found it very easy to accept that information. But I do appreciate for the benefit of those who, I suspect not many people who are listening to this would be very, very skeptical, but for the benefit of people who would question that, probably the most common question I imagine people thinking or asking is, she's a 5-month-old baby. How is she communicating with you? How is she can't move a picture.
Right.
My belief is that, when we return to wherever it is that we came from in the first place, and whatever we want to call it, heaven, the afterlife, whatever, the other side, I believe that we are just an essence, a soul. So we're not a person, but when we see loved ones who have passed, we see them in the form in which we recognize them, because otherwise that would be freaky and weird, and we wouldn't necessarily know what we were seeing.
Right.
And I did have an experience that I write about in The Truth Inside, where on one occasion at Romy's grave, actually, I spent a lot of time up there in the early days. I saw a huge column of blue light, and I was very upset at the time. I was probably very depressed. It was soon after she died. I completely accept that I could have imagined it. It didn't feel like that to me. It felt like it stopped me in my tracks. It felt like a very real experience. I really saw it. It was right there. I could describe, well, the shade of the blue was this shade. I wanted to use it on my book cover because it's one of those situations. It's never left my mind. So I do believe that I've had some kind of an encounter that spoke to me and said that, what, we're not who we are here when we pass. Who we are is who we are inside, and it's an essence or a soul, a spirit. It's not something that is visually recognizable to us. So that would be my explanation as to how I could have these experiences when my daughter was obviously too young to do those things during her lifetime.
I'm a total believer in that, because a few experiences in my life. One, my mom, she lost her, before I was born, was in another marriage, and she lost her child, late term miscarriage. And my mom would, be like, who are you talking to? When I was little, really little, like 3, 4, 5. Who are you talking about? Like the little girl. And I remember, this is the crazy thing, is that I remember being in this apartment complex we lived in. And I remember this little girl, dark hair. And I thought she was the sister of this other little boy I used to play with. My mom's like, there was no little girl. It was just that little boy. I'm like, I remember a little girl. She's like, no, there was no little girl. And you would say, inside our apartment, which we had no kids. I'm like, I do remember being in the apartment. She's like, you never played with kids inside the apartment, but you would talk to the little girl. I'm like, I do remember her. Well, my mom went to a very well-known psychic in our town, and that psychic told her, goes, oh, the little girl your son's talking to, which my mom told this woman nothing. She goes, that's your unborn daughter. I mean, she was never born, but yeah, I saw her as a little girl. So that I discovered that later in my life when my mom's telling me the story, that, well, I remember her mentioning, but I think, well, I did have a play with a little girl. And finally my mom got across to me like, no, there was no little girl there, but I still remember her. But somewhere she faded away. I stopped talking to the little girl, but I always feel like she's there. So that made me a believer. The other thing, it makes me a believer that, this is why I say, all these, when you see people are like, oh, it's just, not to say it's just a baby, but, how could you be, like you're saying, how could you be talking to it? It's just a baby. How do they communicate? I when I was the last time I was living in my parents' house, getting ready to move out because I was marrying my wife. It was like a couple weeks before our marriage, and we were going to move in together. I was sitting daylight time, sitting in their living room. Nobody was home. Their house is not haunted, and I know I've told this story a billion times on the show, but this is really relevant to this conversation. Is I saw this translucent boy. It looked like he was 8 or 9, like the age of my son now, my oldest son, but he didn't look like him. But he was translucent, but I could still see his features. And I had this huge, warm, loving feeling. I wasn't scared. I mean, I've seen a lot of weird, crazy stuff over my years. That's why I do the show. But I wasn't scared. I had this really overwhelming love feeling like I knew him, and he looked at me and he smiled. Well, many years later, my youngest son, Liam, the day he was born, he comes out crying, and they put him down next to my wife's face. And he stops crying and he smiles. And I actually got a picture of it. I posted it. I have a picture of that smile, and that smile, I knew right there and then that was the child I saw in my parents' living room many years before. And so, and Liam told my wife at one point a year or so ago, she's like, I chose you, I chose you. That's and wonderful. So, and you hear these kind of stories from people when it comes to past life stuff to the the celebrity ghost stories, stuff like that. You hear these stories all over that, people have children, that your kids say stuff like this, or they've had this experience of seeing their kids before they were born. I remember there's a famous actress on Celebrity Ghost Stories. She saw her 2 daughters when she was just a little girl. Yes. I can't remember the name of the actress. She's a famous actress, but she saw her 2 kids when she was just a little girl, before many years before they were born. So they are souls that there's some destiny or purpose, but that opens up like a whole other can of questions. Like, she's this little soul, the person that can communicate with you. Why go through this? Why put you through this? Just having her for just those 5 months. Why? That has to be the question.
Yeah, my husband and I spent many hours talking about this. He's, for what it's worth, he's very open-minded spiritually. He would not say that he practices anything, but his particular interest is Buddhism. So we have a lot of crossover. And
my mom's a Buddhist.
Okay.
So
I really respect a lot of the ethos and beliefs of that system, and it gave us some really interesting sort of launching points for conversations, about why, in fact, this is a very typically Buddhist response, and also quite typical of my husband. But during one of my darker moments, I did say to him, like, why us? Why has this happened to us? And he just turned around and said to me, well, why not? Which is a very Buddhist way of looking at the world. Which is like, well, why wouldn't it happen?
Kind of a brave thing to say to you too at that moment.
It was. Well, he knows me very well. We'd already laughed off the. It was quoted at us, I think, several times in the first month. Random people, including a counsellor, said to us, well, you do realise that 80% of marriages fail after the death of a child.
Oh, thanks for reminding us. Thank you so much.
Ooh, should we just divorce now?
Right.
What do we do with that information? We are still married very happily. But we talked about this a lot. Why has it happened? And we sought out some answers. I write in The Truth Inside about one of those encounters. A medium who's a friend of one of my dearest friends, Michelle, doesn't practice anymore, but sort of Michelle obviously told her about us a little and said that they've lost a daughter, they're looking for some people to speak to. And this lady said, look, I'll see them. I don't practice anymore, but I'll see them because they need me to talk to them. And she would not take our money. I think it's important to stress that, because obviously there's a school of thought out there which is like, oh my God, these people are like eating off people's grief. I don't think anyone would really do that consciously. I refuse to believe that about
Me too.
the human race. But you know what? Obviously there are people there who use that ability and take money. And on the large part, I think that's absolutely fine. But there are some situations in which you think, you know, maybe. So anyway, this lady would not take any money from us, and she talked to us very clearly about what she felt were the reasons why. And her explanation was, let's see if I can put it as well as she did. She said that she felt Romy's soul was a very advanced soul, and she needed to come here it was almost she had to collect a final jigsaw piece. She came here to collect something that she was missing. And Jan was this lady's name, and she said she felt, for what it was worth, that the missing piece was something to do with unconditional love. And she said she chose you and your husband very carefully because of your spiritual beliefs, the fact that they are, you know, unconventional and that they're not exactly the same. You both bring something else to the table, if you like. And she said she chose you very carefully because she wanted to collect this final jigsaw piece. And the three of you had an agreement between you before you came here. You had a contract that this is what you were going to do. And you and your husband agreed to take on you know, the lifetime of pain that it would cause to continue to live without your child, in order for Romy to collect what she needed, because it would advance her on her spiritual path, which I find fascinating. I think, you know, there's no way of proving or disproving this. It's just a theory, but I did find it, you know, something struck a chord with me. I thought, God, you know what, that I can take that. And furthermore, she said, you know what, and also because you and your husband have made this sacrifice, in essence, you've said, look, okay, yeah, if this is what you need to do, we will do this with you, and we will suffer for it because you do. She said, when your time comes to pass over, you will advance spiritually because of the agreement that you've made. So I find that deeply interesting, and we've spent many hours talking that through, and again testing it as far as you possibly can, and wondering about it. But it's I think strangely it did give me quite a lot of comfort, and it has done since. And my theory also with a lot of these things, mediumship, and you know, who knows whether we can prove, you know, people are tirelessly trying to come up with evidence and ways to test them, and I really respect that. At the end of the day, I think you have to go with, does it help people? Is it harmless, and does it help? Does it give them false hope? Maybe sometimes, but if it's delivered in the correct way and in a respectful way,
right,
I think it gives people a lot of hope and allows them to live their life more positively. And none of us are ever going to know until we leave here. There is no way of knowing until we go. We can have as many experiences as we like. It really boils down to, well, I've experienced this, and this is what I believe. And that's what I hope I've been very careful to put across in The Truth Inside. Right from the outset, I did not want to write a book that was telling people the afterlife is real. It's not my style, and I like to leave room for people to say, well, you know, it's great that you believe that, but I don't. Yeah, it's fine by me. I have no wish to change anybody's opinion or change their mind. But all I will say is, you know, I had a clear choice. 3 days after Romy died, I was in bed. I hadn't really got out of my bed very much, and I remember just thinking, I can't do it. You know, I had a 4 and a 5-year-old. I had my family downstairs taking care of them, and I thought, I think I would say, prior to this experience, I'm, you know, genuinely a naturally positive person. But I just thought, okay, this has changed, but I can't do it. I can't do it. I just want to not be here, basically. And so I was on the verge of calling my husband and saying, look, can you call a doctor, tell them to just give me something. I don't care what it is. I just want to blank everything out. I'm not doing this. And somewhere in my mind, it's not an easy confession to make, but somewhere in my mind I thought, and someday I'm just going to take everything. I'll take the lot. I'm checking out. I can't be here anymore. And my 5-year-old son walked into my bedroom while I was sort of going through this in my mind. And it was the last couple of days of school before we broke for the summer holidays. And he had his school uniform on, and he came in and he said, "Oh, are you taking me to school?" And I sort of sat up and I said, "Well, no, sweetheart, you don't have to go to school today if you don't want to." And he said, "No, I want to go in." So I thought, okay. And it was one of those seminal moments that it's sort of etched in my mind, because I remember thinking, okay, I can either stay in this bed and I can just take some drugs and blot everything out, and I can be the woman who never got over the death of her child, or I can get up and I can walk my son to school, because, he didn't ask for this to happen in any way at all. None of us did, but he didn't even ask for a sister, for goodness sake. It's like he's standing there and he needs to go to school, and I have to get up and I have to show him that, when really bad things happen, we have to just do our best to live our lives. And so I did get up and walk him to school, and which, of course, everyone in the house, I don't think that's a very good idea. And a friend and neighbour of mine, a little way down the street, her husband was getting ready to walk his son, who is friends with our son. And bless that man, James, my husband was walking with me, and James just kind of walked. He said, "Do you want to walk on your own?" I said, "No." And he took my other hand, and we walked into school that way. And it was a very different. We lived in a very small village at the time. It was very difficult. It was kind of like people were looking at people. Again, no, I'm not disrespecting anyone here. That nobody knew what to do. They were all a bit shocked that I was out there, I think. And so it was a very uncomfortable experience, but we did it. And that's at the point at which I felt I made a choice of like, do you know what, this is my life. That's Romy's life, and she's not here anymore. I still have a life, and I have children, and I have things that I need to do. And it brings you back again to like one of those things was, I've always wanted to write a book. I'm going to write the book. It doesn't matter what happens to the book. I have to write this book, because it's the book I meant to write. I'm now almost at the end of writing the book that I really wanted to write, which is something completely different.
But this got you going. We got to. Yeah, we got to go to commercial break. Sorry to interrupt you, but we're back into this, and we will open up the phone lines when we come back from this commercial break. I'll give out those numbers. You can call in, tell us about your own experiences, or if you have a question for our guest tonight, please call in. Those lines will be open after we come back from this short commercial break.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello,
I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Tired of school?
Who was Joan of Arc?
Noah's wife? Like to travel?
Let's go back into history. Let's reach out and touch someone.
Want to meet people in the past?
Put them in the Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden? Excellent! Execute them. Otis.
Then hitch a ride with George Carlin, Keanu Reeves, and Alex Winter in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from Orion Pictures.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is $42.
42?
Yes, I thought it over quite thoroughly. It is, it's 42. It would have been simpler, of course, to have known what the actual question was.
But it was the question. The ultimate question. Of everything.
That's not a question. Only when you know the question will you know what the answer means.
Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419, or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight, our guest is Ali Norell. Sorry I didn't get the bio at the beginning. We've had technical difficulties the last couple hours before the show. We're lucky to be on air, but we are here with her and talking about her incredible book, The Truth Inside, Lessons from My Daughter in the Afterlife. You know, I've said this on the show plenty of times. I'm going to say it again. As a paranormal investigator, I have plenty of people come to me with their ghost stories and the weird and unusual. But you know, the most often when people find out I'm doing a paranormal radio show or that I'm a paranormal investigator, the stories I get are the ones that are personal. Somebody who is passed on, a close relative or a loved one, and they come to them after their passing. Those are some of my favorite stories. They're the most powerful. I've had my own experiences, the loss of my grandmother and her appearing to me, and other experiences. These are some of the most powerful stories and some the most, I think, insightful to what is the afterlife and where we might go when we move on, and what happens to the ones we love when they move on. I think this is why people have these experiences. There is some way we need to know that they're okay, they're with us. That's what makes her Ali Norell's story so powerful. And tonight, I know I have people that listen to the show that have lost loved ones, lost children, and I could never be imagining in your shoes. But if you want to share tonight, the lines are open. Call in, talk to our guests, ask your questions. But the lines are open. Call in 219-230-4444 or OOJBland00 is the Skype ID. Those are two ways to call in. Call in tonight. We are taking your calls, but let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Thank you for still being with us, Ali.
Hi.
So, I told you about how, like you said, you get some of the criticism is how does a spirit of a child that was only 5 months old still communicate? And there's the idea that they're these souls, For me, my explanation is I believe in past lives. I believe we've been doing this over and over. Some people don't buy that. Some people think it's other things. I get that. I'm open to all ideas. I could be wrong. But have you this kind of experience with Romy? Did this open you up to more ideas about what the spirit world is, or change you more than just you were already spiritual? But did this give you feel like more insight to what you feel is happening on the other side?
Yes, and I think it, as I said before, I felt that it corroborated what I had already suspected or felt. I felt that it was more information that kind of sat very nicely alongside the experiences I'd already had. Actually, probably the one thing that stood out for me, you mentioned earlier about having seen your son. I had that exact same experience with my older daughter, Layla.
Really?
I saw her years before she was born. Actually, it was about a year before our oldest son was born, who's our oldest child, Casper. And I was in a yoga class, and we were sort of lying down at the end of the class. And this was a small class in London. There were definitely no children in that class.
Yeah.
There were no children in that yoga studio. Generally, it wasn't that type of yoga studio. So we're lying down, and I just heard this voice very clearly say, "Mummy." And it was so loud that I sat up and looked around, because I thought, who's let a kid in here? It's like, is a child that's lost? Like, what, I sat up and looked, and there was obviously no child in the room. I lay back down again. And I saw, I say saw, but it's in my sort of, I would say in my mind's eye, when I see things clairvoyantly, it's almost, the best way I can describe it is if I close my eyes, it's like I have a a cinema screen behind my forehead. I see things on there. And I got this very strong image of a child, a little girl. And I remember I went home to my husband and I said, I know this sounds really crazy. I think I've just seen one of our children. And I described, and I said, look, she's a little girl. She looks exactly like me, but her hair was curly. My husband has a curl in his hair. And I said, it was really bizarre. And she called me mummy. And it was really strange. And I sat up and there was nobody there. 3 days later, I discovered I was pregnant. And then actually I lost that pregnancy. It was very, very early. So it's literally like it was there and then it wasn't there. And almost a year later, I was pregnant with our son, almost to the day, oddly. And I spent that whole pregnancy absolutely convinced he was a girl. When I tell him that now, he's nearly 12. He's like disgusted. Like, I'm going to show you were a girl. You know, you're going to have a girl's name. So I was absolutely sure he was a girl. And then, you know, he was born. I was like, oh, he's a boy. And still my understanding spiritually is that, you know, gender is something that exists, you know, to coin a phrase, on the earth plane, and that we're all actually souls and we're genderless. So, you know, I kind of had that in my head. But then 18 months later, we had Layla. And the minute she was born, I thought, there you are. Like, you're the girl I saw. And as she grew up, you know, she does look extraordinarily like me. Her hair is not curly now, but up until the age of about 4, which would have been the age of the child that I thought I had seen. Her hair, strangely, was very curly. But even further than that, I had 2 experiences. Once I went to a medium very randomly. She started talking to me about children. She said, oh, you've got children. You've got 2 children. Your older child is a girl. So I said, no. So obviously it was only one more guess to go with that one. But she said, well, that's really odd. She said, is your daughter sort of like very mature or very responsible? And I said, no, I can't really say that. So she thought for a minute. She said, you know what? This sounds really strange. She said, I'm being told your daughter was meant to come first. And I thought, well, that's strange. That I can kind of make that fit. Didn't think much more of it. And then some years later, I think my son and daughter were maybe, I think it must have been before I was pregnant with Romy. So they were very little, 3, 4 maybe. And my son said to me during maybe I was just pregnant with Romy and we were talking about having a new baby. That could have been it. And he said to me, Mummy, I was supposed to be first. And I said, what do you mean? And he carried on with something else. We lost it. But he clearly said, I was supposed, you know, he said Layla was supposed to be first.
Layla was supposed to be first.
So he said Layla was supposed to be first. And Layla said, what do you mean? And he said, no, you were supposed to be first. And it was really weird. I've always had this feeling that first pregnancy was my daughter, was Layla. And for some reason it was agreed, like, no, she wasn't quite meant to be here then. So they switched. He came and then she came. And for what it's worth, I really believe, that's what I believe. And I feel that that's been repeated to me from different sources more than once over the years. So, you know.
I say you always got to trust, you know, there's an inner voice inside that tells you what these things mean sometimes, and you have to just listen to it. You know, I think about a lot of this stuff deeply about my children and how they came into this world. And, you know, I even wonder, you know, not to be personal, but I had a vasectomy. We chose to stop at the 2, but I always wanted a little girl. And then I was saying this to my wife just the other night. I was like, you know, I just wonder, like, did we make the right decision? I know we could not afford to have another kid. We don't have a house big enough for another kid, but it's like, it really, like, part of me is like, I feel like there's still supposed to be this 3rd child. And like, what do we do? You know, like there's still this feeling there.
Be very careful.
Well, it's done, man. It's done.
You know, it's
but who's to say, you know, we don't adopt a child later in life? Things get different, and I believe it doesn't matter if the child's born from your genes or not. You can love a child as your own.
Absolutely. I really, I always said I would have been open to adopting if our situation had been different. But you know, I believe that our children choose us, and that was exactly the feeling I remember. Actually, we went to, because we were fortunate enough, we had all of our children at home. They were all born at home, 4 different houses, weirdly. We moved a lot, but
Yeah.
when we went to the hospital to sign off with the team there after Romy was born, which is what you need to do here, the midwife jokingly said to us, like, "Oh, will we be seeing you again?" And my husband said, like, "No, no, definitely not." And I sort of hesitated, and everyone laughed at me. And I said, "Well, I'm not done." And I wasn't done. I was 41. I just had my third child.
Oh my
I
God.
wasn't, and I really wasn't done. A year later, we were back in. I had my son.
I'm 41. My wife's turning 41. We were like, we're done.
No, maybe not. I was 32 when my youngest was born, and I knew he was meant to be there. After Romy died, we had that conversation. Like, look, first we wanted to establish, was this something that could be hereditary? Because if that had been the case, there was no way we would go there again. But they were able to assure us that wasn't the case. And then we sort of talked, well, gosh, it's not like we have lots of time. Is this something that we'd want to consider? And actually, my husband had said, "Look, I'm really sorry. I don't think I can go through it. What if, with all the things that could possibly happen,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can deal with it." And then I woke up one morning and I said to him, "Look, I know we've had the conversation. I just have to tell you, I've had this dream, and I feel like there's another child there, and that if we wanted to have another child, somebody's going to turn up. I feel like there's an open door," is I think the word that I used. And he turned around and he said to me, "Jen, it's really weird because I had that dream too, and I feel like we should." Weeks later, I was pregnant. It's our youngest son, Maxon, who is, he's amazing. He was definitely, he's a healer in many ways. He changed all of our lives. He's a beautiful soul. So and I think anything that advanced my beliefs after Romy's death really is particularly my older daughter Layla. She is definitely very tuned in, and that they say that up to the age of 2, a child shares an aura with his or her mother. Some people will say this, and up until around 4, they have some kind of recollection. If you're a believer in past lives, they say that up until around the age of 4, children have some kind of recognition of the life they lived before. And we and the world around us condition them out of it because they get told, "Oh, don't be silly. No, you haven't." In fact, my younger son, who I just mentioned, Maxon, even my husband, who is open to most spiritual things, but is a bit kind of jury's a bit out on past lives. Even he now is completely convinced. We've had so many. I've watched that child so many times and thought, "You have been here before."
Yeah.
We believe he lived during some kind of conflict or was in the army, or I got into the car when he was about 1.5 years old, and I happened to be wearing a camouflage jacket, and he just started screaming at me. I mean, he must have been 1.5, or he was definitely old enough to speak, because I was saying, what's the matter? What's the matter? And he was just kind of like grabbing at my jacket, and I said, "Is it the jacket?" And I took it off, and he stopped, and I thought, my God, what is this? And this was after a catalogue of other incidents. We had, we have firework night here in November. We have Guy Fawkes night, bonfire night, where the tradition is to let off fireworks. And we were going out to see some fireworks one night. We were on our front pathway of our house, and some fireworks started going off, and he threw himself to the ground, and he sort of crawled up the front path. He was sort of commandoing, like you see soldiers doing, like in front of all of us. And we were just looking at each other like, "Oh my God, what is that?" And he did it once in the bath. Also, he was playing in the bath, and a bang went off, and he just hit the deck. It was really odd. And when he was very little, if I was getting him dressed, there was one occasion I put a T-shirt over his head, and I couldn't quite get it, and he freaked out, and I had to take it off. And I sat him and I said, "Okay, look, I'm here. You're here with me. This is not what happened before." And I didn't know if he could understand me or not, but he did calm down. But yeah, to this day, he doesn't like things over his head. He doesn't like loud noises. It's really extraordinary. And they do.
It makes you wonder.
It really does. It really does. And my daughter said to me once, she was going to sleep. She was probably 4 years old, and we were just, I love you, I love you. And she said she was just really sleepy, which is again when they say that your consciousness is more alive to these things, right? When you've got beta brainwaves rather than alpha. And she said, "Oh, I love you." Worryingly, she said, "I love you so much more than my other mummy." I sort of, sorry, what? And she said, I love you so much more than my other mummy. And I just checked myself and I said, wow, that's really interesting. Can you tell me about your other mummy? Because that's what you have to do, apparently. You have to just ask open questions.
Yes.
And she said, well, I said, when did you, where's your other mummy? Was this another mummy that you have now? And she said, no, before I was born, when I was in you. So I said, oh, really? And she said, yes, I had another mummy. She used to look after me. And I said, that's so nice. So what was she like? Can you tell me about her? And she said, well, she was kind of like a witch. She knew things. She knew everything. She was very wise. But I like you better. And that was it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I tried asking more questions. She's like, no, I want to go to sleep.
And they shut you down. We went through this. Yeah. We went through this last year with my 4-year-old Liam. He insisted that we weren't his family, and his house was just. We had to keep him from like going out the fence and going down the street to another house because he's like, my mom and dad are down there, and I have the brother or he's telling us names like his dad's Steven and his sister. It was like telling us like what's we're trying to inquire, and it went on for a couple weeks, and then it's just gone, shut down.
Wow.
Like doesn't even know what we're talking about.
Does make you wonder.
And then my oldest son has sensory disorder. So sensations, touch, feelings, noises. And when he was little, he would he always picks up theme songs. Like he can Star Wars, Jurassic Park. I mean, like he can like literally take like the John Williams score from a movie and like hum it perfectly. Well, when he was really little, I swear this kid's going to grow up. If he doesn't make video games, it's going to be making music for movies. He was like really little. He's 3, 4. He would start humming the Civil War soldiers song, like, like I could not figure out where you heard that from. And we always were like, where did you get that from? Like makes you wonder.
It really does. That's extraordinary. That's so interesting. My eldest son is on the autistic spectrum. So, I find that's a fascinating world to be privileged to be a part of in many ways.
Well, they've not been able to really track down for like autism, the sources. It's such a mystery. I have family members that are autistic severely. And, but with more and more cases, we get into the idea of past lives and what the soul is there accumulation of so much suffering and souls being damaged by I'm sorry, the world can be a really nasty place. And people, pass in horrible ways. And does this damage the soul? And is this what we see with some of these issues and disorders as we grow? It's nothing that we're doing genetics. It's not the vaccines that everybody's talking about. It's something at the soul level happening. We don't even understand. We don't even understand that picture of what's going on.
That's really interesting, especially given that, autism is a condition, which, I often describe as it's like hypersensitivity.
Yeah.
Across the board, and obviously it affects different individuals in different ways. And our son is very high functioning, but he's a really sensitive individual, and so there are challenges for him and for us, but overall it constantly feels like a privilege. I'm constantly learning from him how to see the world in a different way, and I understand why he doesn't feel like he fits into that, and why he doesn't his theory is kind of like, why would you want to fit into this world? And I get that.
That's how I've always felt, but I always felt like an alien. If I discover when I die that, you've lived on other worlds and other alien creatures, like that totally makes sense. That's why this world seems completely. I'm never totally meshed with this world, and I feel completely off.
I get that. I really get that. I think that's why people like us end up seeking. We look for other information because I think. That feeling of like this can't be it. Really, is this it? We look for other answers and other information. Definitely
something beyond the material world. The everyday grind is like there's got to be more magic than this, and there is. You really realize that when you have children. I really feel like that bond, that love is so magical. And people are like, oh, so sappy. But, you really, me and my wife, we were like, we're not, when I first met her, we were, we got married at 23. But when I first met her, we went out and we're both like, yeah, we don't want kids. Because the way I saw it then at that age is that I want to just not have anybody to worry about but myself and maybe a significant other. I don't want to worry about anybody because the world's going to go to hell in a handbasket. I can see it coming. It's going to go to hell in a handbasket. I'm 41, 22 when I started dating her, and she was this. We both went to grade school together, and to be, this is the other thing to get into all this stuff is predestination. When we were just as me and my wife's relationship, when I met her and I started dating her, it came to me that I had a dream about us when I was in like 4th, 5th grade, when I first met her, 5th grade. And I had a dream about us together, like in a physical way a kid shouldn't understand. I had that dream in like 5th grade, and it weirded me out. Never talked to her. And then when many years later, we never talked in high school, we ended up getting together on our first date. And she's like, yeah, I don't want kids. I'm like, I don't want kids either. And we got married. We went 8 years without having kids, and Dean, our first, was not planned. But we had started thinking, like, if we had a kid, we want to name him Dean. We're big Supernatural fans. If you've ever seen the show, Dean Winchester. We started talking about it. It's like it all happened the night. I knew it the night he was conceived. Like I knew it. I know people are like, oh, you're not getting in this. I think we should talk about this because I think other people might have had this experience. I know it gets a little bit personal. See, did you know the night you conceived your kid? I knew the night I conceived my kid because afterwards I just kept on thinking she's pregnant. And 8 years of marriage of having sex all that time, I never worried about it. We're not having kids. She's on the birth control. That night I knew she's pregnant, and she would deny it. She's like, I'm not pregnant. It went on for weeks. And finally, I went out and bought her a pregnancy test. I said, you're pregnant. Take that test. She's like, I'm not pregnant. Screw you. And she takes the test. She's like, oh, my God, I'm pregnant. Jesus. Like I knew it. And both pregnancies, honestly knew. Like the night I conceived them. Yeah, it's like something happens. There's a soul that comes through that night.
The way I described it actually was that, which sounds really freaky. I remember I said to my husband that not my dad. My God, no! I didn't say it to my dad.
Freudian slip. It's all right. Live radio.
It's fine. I said to my husband. I remember I said to him, it's almost like I can feel somebody else in the room. I can feel the presence of somebody else in the room. It's what it felt like to me. I felt somebody else had come into the room. And I would say thinking about it, with all 4 of our children, I knew. I definitely knew. There was a feeling about it. I knew.
I'm hoping my wife's asleep because she hates it when I talk about this. When I say it. She should be asleep by now. She listens to it in bed. I hope she's not waking up hearing me. Sorry, but I swear the nights that we conceived the children, I knew it. I knew it, and that's the weirdest experience. Most people won't talk about that, but this is Paranormal Soup. It's all out there if it's the paranormal.
There's a fabulous book actually called oh dear, what's it called? Walter McKeishen. It's called Spirit Babies by
sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So he sees the spirit. Is it a psychic that sees the babies in the aura field?
Yeah,
I've heard of that.
A couple of years ago. He's not around anymore, but it's an amazing book. I used to work as a reflexologist, and I used to work with couples trying to conceive. So I worked with fertility for some time, and if I felt when I got to know a client and I realized that they were interested in that sort of spirituality, I would recommend that book to them, and it always helped. Really? I think it helps to understand that it's not just physical mechanics. I do believe that it's not just physical mechanics that bring children here. There's a spiritual aspect to it. There's an idea of, what this person is meant for this person, that you choose your parents. As your son said, I do believe that there's an element of that at play, very much so. And that's a wonderful book. It really is, for anyone who's trying to
I never read it, but I heard of it. And one of the reasons I heard of it because I've had the experience of seeing auras. It hit me. It came back to me. I think really hit me. I knew what it was when I was in my early 20s and I started to experiment and I started seeing auras. And I think I saw them as a kid, but really seeing them as an adult, I see little shapes and stuff in the aura. And sometimes I have seen little faces in the aura. And that's when I got interested in, I've heard about that.
Yes. Well, this is what he, that's how he worked. That's how Walter Makaishan worked. He said that he could see the number of souls within a person's aura, and really it did not mean if you had 10 souls in your aura that you're going to have 10 kids, but it meant those were the number of potential children that person could have, or those are the souls that are drawn to that person and then may choose to come through, but it had to be an agreement. It's a really interesting set of theories, actually. It's a great book.
Have you ever seen the movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams?
No, I don't think I have. With Robin Williams,
no. It was a book, and then they made a movie out of it in the 90s. Yeah. Okay, so there's the American version, and then there's like the rest of the world version. I highly recommend the rest of the world version, because the way because what it gets into afterlife and the loss of children. Robin Williams' character, his children die in a car accident, and then just after it almost destroys him and his wife, they rebuild themselves back up. He dies. Not to spoil alert, but it's the main premise of the movie. And he goes to the afterlife and goes through all this trials because his wife's the only one left. Imagine being the only one left. Your whole family's gone. Wow. And but the American version, everything, I don't give all away, but let's just say the American version ends, they're in heaven, everything happily ever after. The other version, the other version does the rebirth. Like, they have to come back and play out some karma that happened with all this. I don't want to give too much away yet, since you haven't seen it.
Okay.
But I always found that interesting of how a Western view of things, they had to change it to the rest of the world version, where they're like, oh yeah, we'll have reincarnation, and they got to work out this karmic stuff. And it's really interesting. It's a really interesting ending. I didn't see it till years later after seeing the original ending. I'm like, man, I feel gypped as an American. Why do you think I can't see the reincarnation stuff?
Wow, I love that. I'm writing that down.
What Dreams May Come, Robin Williams, who I dearly miss.
I can't believe I missed that as well. I love his movies.
Yeah, you should see it, because it really relates a lot to everything we're talking. I kept thinking about the movie tonight as we've been talking, because loss of the loss of children, and how. See, I don't want to give away too much, but it's so relatable to our conversation tonight. I'll say this, is that Robin Williams' character meets these two different people throughout the movie, and I won't say who, but later on, I am kind of spoiling. Damn it. Let's say, but it's really relevant. I'm sorry. I'm going to do this.
Go on, say it.
Spoiler.
It's okay.
So two of these people turn out to be his children. He doesn't even realize it.
Right.
Because they're all grown up. They don't look like themselves. They don't have, not, it's not like it's them growing up. They're totally different people on the other side.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's a great premise, isn't it? That's really brilliant.
But that's what we're getting into, is the idea that, Romy, is this little soul, but maybe not a little soul. She could be here as an adult. She could be, she's lived other lives. She's had all these other experiences. She's something completely more than, to you had this experience with her as a 5-month-old baby, but the soul is so much more.
That's right. Yeah, I do. That is my feeling. And strangely early on, around the time that we went to speak with Jan, the medium that I mentioned, who was known to my friend who saw it without charging us, I had a strong feeling. I thought, she's not coming back, because part of what went through my mind in the early days is that, well, if I get pregnant again, will I get her back?
Right. That's a question. No, that's something I would think of. Yeah.
Exactly. I did think of that. And she kind of got to that before I'd asked her. She said, look, I know you want to know, is she coming back? She's not coming back. And I knew it. I did know it in my gut. I thought, you know what, she's done. And that's kind of what, it's like, look, she's very advanced. She came here to complete something. She doesn't need to come back. And I did know that. So yeah, in some senses it was a relief, because I think then I felt free to go on to consider another pregnancy. as much as it would have been very romantic of me to say, well, it could be her coming back. Actually, would I want that? I don't know is the answer. It's a strange question to be asking yourself. I am glad that my son who is here, I'm glad that without a shadow of a doubt, I can say this is not her. He's a whole other personality, and he's a new person, and that's the way it should be. I think that's the best way of describing it. It wouldn't have felt right. You can't wish somebody back, and would you want to? There's a whole load of
I don't see, we talk about the nights we conceived our children, that we knew they were born, and it's just a special moment. Well, I was talking to my wife a couple weeks ago about the idea where we're heading in with genetics and science, that we're heading down a road. It could be very dangerous, because I admit I'd be tempted if I lost my child, and then they can come to you and say, well, here we have some cells and tissue, and we can bring your child back. We can go put them, the test tube clone of your child. People are like, oh, that's crazy. But when you put somebody down that's lost someone, and they give anything to hold them, smell them again, to be them, and the science says we can do it. People are going to do it. People are going to do it. And I'm not judging those people, because loss is a horrible thing, and anything to relieve it, and don't judge them for it. But but what are the implications of that? Spiritually.
No, I don't think, as much as I would have wanted to, I would not have been able to go down that route. I certainly couldn't now, but even in the early days, I think the temptation would have been huge.
Right.
I do not believe that you should mess with those things. Again, I wouldn't judge anybody who made a different choice, but I would not mess with those sorts of things.
But like I said, the futurist of me sees this as what's going to happen. They're already doing it. There's already services out there to clone pets.
Wow. Yeah, I find that terrifying.
Right. I do too. But at the same time, I completely understand the want for it, the will for it, the reason why people would say, yeah, do it. I understand that. I understand that. But if you think about it on a spiritual level, what are we doing? What are we creating? What are they going to be soul-wise?
And what we're doing is we are stunting our spiritual growth, because, if you look at Buddhist teachings, my husband,
life is suffering.
But yes, and also, it's acceptance. If you have to, acceptance is the hardest thing in the world, in my opinion, to practice. Forgiveness, all of those things, they all come down to that thing. They all come down to acceptance. Living through the pandemic that we've been living through, it's about acceptance. If you can practice acceptance, you have some peace in yourself. If you can't, if you're constantly looking for ways to fight against what it is that you think is causing your suffering, your life is that's it. That you're in your life, and you're using all your energy to fight and to go up against stuff and to try and stop it happening to you. And we can't do that. That kind of helped me a lot when in my sort of paranoia about something happening to one of my children, or we have to face thoughts that we want to face as human beings. And I think the society we've constructed wants to make everything okay, and it wants to stop bad things happening. And actually, there's no yin without the yang, right? You can't exist in a life. It's what I hope whatever is coming next is. Is more of the sort of more of the perfect. But I do believe that we are here to learn. That's what I believe, and we can't learn if everything is perfect all the time. We learn through challenge. It's what I tell my kids all the time. You make a mistake, well, that's great, because you've learned something from it. And sometimes mistakes take you down another route. So I think mistakes and bad things are a necessary part of life, as much as they're very difficult to live through. If you can somehow find a way to accept what has happened, this has happened. So which direction do I go? That's how we evolve and how we learn. And I really think that is what is the point of being here? Well, that's got to be it, right? What else is there?
Well, I've always pointed this one of my as what I always thought about why there's pain, there's suffering, in life, in this world, loss, losing people, is that if everything was perfect, it's the Twilight Zone episode where, I forget the name of the episode at the moment, where the guy, basically he dies and he's in his casino, he wins every game, he can get every drink he wants, any food he wants, any woman he wants, everything he wants, he can have. And he's like, I'm in heaven, baby. Until the end of the episode when he's like, let me out of here, because he's so bored out of his mind. Nothing means anything because he can have anything. So nothing means anything. There's no loss. There's no risk of loss. That's it. That I felt that Twilight Zone really captured the essence of life. Why there is the pain, the suffering, is that is the yin yang. You can't really enjoy others without the potential of loss in a sense. It's such a vicious circle in a little bit.
That's right. And there we have, I think there we have the issue that a lot of our young celebrities face now. That is the life that some of them are in. They feel as if they have everything from a very young age. They're living that life, and it can be very destructive if you don't have some balance. I'm not suggesting that anyone who's really enjoying their life or enjoying some great things happening to them should immediately start seeking out something awful, or
no.
There is without, if we try and stop those things happening, then we're restricting the flow of life in general. And I think that is when things you start to upset the order of things. And I don't know what that order is, and I don't even know what set of beliefs I subscribe to with that, but I do believe there is I'm not saying like, oh, fate, things are meant to be, but I do believe there is a certain order to things. And that, when I talk about, my child died, that was how it was supposed to be. And on some level, I knew it. My aunt, actually, she lost her daughter, strangely, almost exactly the same age as Romy was, almost to the day. I was 6 years old when this happened. I remember it happening. Different set of circumstances, but she was the person I wanted to speak to first when I got home from the hospital, and I called her, and I remember the first thing she said to me on the phone was, I know exactly what you want to ask me. You want to ask me, did I know? And I did. And it was extra, because that is what I wanted to ask her. And I did not know. I mean, I have heard some parents say that when a child was born, they had a sense that they weren't going to be around, or they weren't going to live a long life. I did not have that.
That's a horrible sense. That'd be an anxiety and paranoia.
I'm glad I did not have that sense. I didn't. It blindsided me. But I called my best friend from the hospital in the middle of the night when everything was kicking off. I woke her up, and obviously at this point I was really hysterical, and I don't remember this conversation. I think I was in deep shock, and I was also very, very upset. But she says she remembers the whole conversation, as you would, and she says, I kept saying to her, I knew this was going to happen. I remember saying that to her, but she said, no, you kept saying, I just knew it. I knew this was going to happen. And I think I said something like, she's too perfect. I knew she wasn't going to stay. And so there was that knowing somewhere inside me. I didn't recognize it, and I don't remember saying it out loud, but there was a sense of there was a recognition there, I think.
Well, there's you say you blacked it out. In trauma, that's common. This was a traumatic event, but it might have been something during when Romy was here that you blocked out. It was there. You did know.
Yeah.
But you didn't want to look at it. Yeah.
Because we don't. Of course we don't. We don't.
Because you couldn't change it. There's nothing you could do to change it.
Exactly. And that's what my husband said to me. What she had, we think, was some kind of brain aneurysm. So obviously at some point, I did what any mother would do. And I thought, oh my God, I should have noticed something. There was that thing, and that thing that happened. And why didn't I just take her to the doctor? And, it's my fault if I'd noticed it. And my husband said, look, if you believe that this was always meant to be this way, then what would you have done with that information? What if we'd taken her somewhere and they'd said, okay, we'll do a brain scan. We're like, oh, look, we found this anomaly. Okay, it's an aneurysm, so it could just basically burst at any time. There's nothing we can do. He said, what would you have done with that information? We had so little time with her. Would you have wanted to spend that time panicking, worrying, doing everything you possibly could to stop this thing from happening that was going to happen anyway. Yeah, it's the big question, isn't it? But I look back now, and I generally, obviously, I would rather that hadn't happened, but I do believe that on some spiritual level, I chose it. And I believe that there would not have been anything that I could have done to prevent it from happening. I am glad that I was not presented with a whole load of information of like, okay, do you know what? This is going to happen to you. I'm glad that
that'd be torture.
Yeah, it would. Because I don't think I could have done anything to stop it. And so therefore I'm left with, okay, so here I am, and this has happened, and maybe I can share my experiences, and if I can just help one person who's been where I've been emotionally, if I can help one person, then to me that's my daughter's legacy. Or if I can, and in another sense, I always wanted to write. Well, now I'm writing, I'm doing what I always dreamed of doing as a child, and that's an immense gift, particularly in these times, I think. So, I try to look at the positives and the direction that my life has taken, because I had the privilege of knowing my daughter, and because she didn't stay here. And yeah, it helps me to believe that I will see her in some form again in the future. And, I completely respect that for some people, that's not palatable, or they think that that's, sad or damaging, or, I don't think it damages me. I think I am living a more positive and hopeful life because I'm holding those beliefs. And so that's the way I'm going to do it, because that works for me. And, and I'm sitting here and I'm okay.
Well, I think, we talked about it earlier in the show about people turn to atheism. They completely deny there's any afterlife or God after experiences. And other people turn, I also, the other crux of the other people turn heavily to religion after something like this too. And they have to have some kind of solid faith to believe in. And I understand both. I completely understand both in those situations, as best I can understand. I haven't had that kind of loss, but as best as I could figure it, I can understand, either going either way on that, but what I've learned from the friends that I know have lost and grieving, I have not had that kind of loss in my life, thankfully. I lost a grandparent that hurt me very much, but not had that kind of loss, and knock on wood. But what it seems like, I think, is for people tell them, well, you'll get over it, or, the pain will eventually go away. And if I had to think about it myself, if I have lost my child, I wouldn't want the pain to go away, because the pain is them. That pain is my love of them gone. I can't ever let that go.
That's exactly how I feel. And
like the crux of it.
Yeah. And, you come unstuck a little bit in bereavement counseling with that one, because I had a lot of bereavement counseling, but and I did used to struggle with the notion, and I totally appreciate counseling is not the point of bereavement counseling is not to get you to get over your loss. They're trying to ease your existence, because for some people it's utterly crippling, no matter who they've lost. For some people it could be a pet, it's valid, right?
Yeah,
it's
no, I totally understand that.
But I would really struggle when it got to the point of I would get to a certain point, and this still happens today, where I just think, no, if I cross that marker, then I'm losing her. And it is, right. There's a theory that we hold on to our grief because that is part of the person that we've lost, and we can't bear to. And again, it comes down to acceptance, right? It's again, if we can try to accept that this person is not physically here, but we look for other ways in which, we can honor that person's memory and make them feel alive in the world to us in a healthy way. Then I think that does help you to accept. And accept doesn't mean let go. I think it's an unfortunate term, actually, in a sense, because if you've lost a child,
right,
and somebody's, you need to let go.
Let go.
Let go of my children who, they're going to get to
never
tell my daughter, 35, you're going to live next door to my house. You're not
right.
You're not going anywhere. You don't want to let go of your children ever. Well, I don't. They'll be letting go of me.
Well, no, that's exactly it. I said that, it's something me and my wife talk about. It's like, I'm trying, I wish I could win the lotto, not to have a bunch of money to not worry about that'd be great. But I wish I could just win the lotto so I could just stay home with my kids and cherish every little freaking minute because they are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, like, and they're not going to be that little. They're not going to let me hold them anymore. And it's going to kill me. It's going to kill me when I can't cuddle with my, my little guys anymore. Even my 9-year-old son, it's getting to that point where it's like, I felt really grateful to be able to just he sat down. We watched a whole Jurassic Park cartoon series, all 8 episodes in one night. I didn't care because he finally let me sit there and cuddle him. He hasn't let me do that in a while, like my 4-year-old's like, oh, cuddle bug. But it's like, they're going to eventually be these people. They're going to be these grown adult people. They're not going to be these little guys anymore. And that'll be gone. It's them, but that'll be gone. And that kills me just thinking about that,
Yeah, me too. It's a really tough part of being a parent, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's why it's like I said, what you've gone through and what you're, sharing with your experience is so powerful because to me, I don't know how to say it. It sounds horrible to say, but you live my worst nightmare, and live through it.
It's horrible to say, of course, it is most people's worst nightmare. And I can't deny it, it nearly finished me, but I think definitely having some kind of belief in something other than what we see in front of us definitely helped me a lot.
But you didn't have blind faith in it. That's the thing.
No.
You always are looking at what we've talked about tonight. You've always looked like, is this a real thing happening? Is this real? And that's to me, that's the whole point right there is you want to know the truth. You want to know, are they okay? It's not just some desperate, I'm just going to believe in this because it'll make everything okay. No, you want to know.
That's right. And even if it's not, it's okay, if somebody's just feeding me a lie here, I still want to know. It's going to be disappointing, but I'd rather that than kind of believing something that isn't really real. And that's where I come to with all of the experiences that I've had, some of which I described in The Truth Inside. I think if it's real for me and it helps me in some way, then that's going to be a good thing. And I'm past the point where I want to have an argument with somebody about it. I've never particularly wanted to do that anyway.
Right.
But in the day I was, looking at mediumship and, you'd meet people at a party and they'd be like, oh, okay. So if you're psychic, tell me what the lottery numbers are, or well, how did you know this?
Would I be here if I could get the lottery numbers, you jerks?
Right. But one of the things I imagined that people would be asking when I wrote the book, and I asked it of myself, is, well, hang on, if I'm psychic, or if I have these abilities, why the hell didn't I know that my own child was going to die?
Right.
Well, because I don't believe we're supposed to know some of this information. I really, and it comes back to that question of, well, if I had to know the information, what would I have done? If somebody had told it to me before I got pregnant, what would I have done? If I was newly pregnant and somebody had told me that, what choice would I have made? Nobody can, whatever we think we believe, we don't know what we're going to do when we're faced with a piece of information like that. And so I believe very strongly, funnily enough, I did have an experience with a medium just before I was pregnant with Romy. And at that point, I actually felt very strongly that there was meant to be somebody. I was meant to have another child. And let's just say my husband wasn't quite, not so much. So, we were having a few discussions about it. And I had this encounter with this medium. And I remember, him telling this information. And I remember saying, I had this question. And I never ask questions because I just believe that you sort of get told what you're meant to hear. But this was a burning question. And he was really, his whole body language changed. It's one of those situations in retrospect. His whole body language changed, and I thought he knows what I'm going to ask him. And I said, "Am I going to have any more children?" And he just kind of started packing up his stuff and said, "Yes, you'll have another girl," and so that was it. And I remember thinking, that's it's odd
Kinda
delivery.
odd.
This was a guy who,
another girl. Bye.
Yeah, I don't know, but I wonder whether he actually did have the information and very correctly did not give it to me. That would have been catastrophic. You can't do that. You can't do that in somebody's life. That's wrong. So he acted correctly, and he answered the question I asked. But I do wonder. I've asked myself a lot. I wonder if he knew.
Yeah.
I wonder if he saw or felt something, because he wasn't comfortable about giving me that information at all. So, I always thought if you actually had the super psychic powers like the Johnny
from Dead Zone, Stephen King's like grabs. You can see all that stuff because if you've ever seen Dead Zone, like literally everybody touches, and then like you see something horrible. It's never something good. It's always something horrible. They had a TV show was just based on it. What a horrible responsibility. I mean, what do you don't want to tell people this stuff if they can't change it. I mean, usually he's telling them something can hopefully change, but I mean, I had one guest on, was it Gary Williams was his name? He was a psychic, and he totally, everything's predestined. Like in his opinion, everything I predict, it's all predestined. You cannot change the future. I'm a Yoda kind of believe philosophy of the future's always in motion,
I believe that too. Yeah. Yeah. And I believe
but there are some things set in stone.
Yes. And I believe that a good psychic medium or a clairvoyant, there are codes, there are rules about doing that work.
Yeah.
That's something I did learn, and there are certain pieces of information that you do not share, even if you hear it very strongly. That it's all in the translation. You would never tell somebody they're going to, get cancer and die, for example. You might say, "Oh, have you visited your doctor? I feel like there might be an issue with your, whatever part of the body. Might be an idea to go and speak to a medical professional, but don't worry." That's really as far as I believe that anyone can go with those sorts of things, because people panic and then they make decisions, and that's where I get people who are skeptical or
critical.
And that's very valid, because that does happen, and it can and it does happen, and
you wonder if there are some people that have the psychic ability that are just completely irresponsible with it.
There are.
Yeah.
There definitely are. Just like in any other profession, there are people who operate not for a place of integrity. I don't know very many of them, but I think that they exist. And there are also some people who operate in a really well-intentioned way, but in a way that's not correct. There are professional boundaries and there are codes of conduct. And it's just, I know that there are organizations in the US like the Forever Family Foundation, who are trying to put in place codes of conduct, which I really respect, to try and, that can only enhance a medium.
A medium could do some serious harm.
Absolutely.
And I'm not even talking about people being fraudulent. I'm talking about them actually having the ability and doing some serious harm with it.
I agree with you. I think often it's people who actually have a really good intention, and they just go a bit too far. It's because also you can be wrong. The information can be wrong. You can translate the information incorrectly. So, it is I would definitely advocate caution to people who are considering consulting mediums, or, go to somebody who somebody has been to and they've had a good experience. And test it. Have your own tests in place, not like, silly tests where you kind of, I'm hiding something, what color is it? But, as there's the kind of the things that I've described, like kind of if you're wearing a locket with the photo of your loved one, cover it up. Just little. And
when I first got married, on our honeymoon, I took my wedding ring off and did a tarot reading. That made that woman so mad. She's like, I sense you're going to get married soon. I'm like, gotcha. And she was not happy. We got to go to our last commercial break. When we come back, I'd like to talk to you about how maybe if you can give some advice to people how to maybe help their abilities, maybe if they want to try to communicate with a loved one who's passed on. When we come back from this commercial break, and hey guys, phone lines, you guys aren't calling in. Come on, you call in, join the conversation tonight. Those lines are open when we come back from this short commercial break.
Intercepted transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and
want to hear from leading researchers in the field? Join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college. I've got a family to support and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Since 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Heat 'em up. Do, re, he gone.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419, or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight, we've been talking to our guest, Ali Norell, about her book, Truth Inside, Lessons from My Daughter in the Afterlife. She lost her daughter, Romy, at 5 months old. Again, like I said earlier in the show, that would be my worst nightmare if something happened to my children. She's lived through it and shared these experiences. And, there's plenty of people out there that have probably lost someone and they didn't, they're not spiritual. They didn't have that kind of the ideas like me and Ali have. And it might be, even tougher. In a way, Ali might be more, like she said, her daughter chose her for this because she's able to have a relationship in a way with her after she's been gone. Not many people get to say that about loved ones they have. And if you are curious about how you can communicate or, even reach out or feel that presence of someone who's you love that's passed on, it is possible. I've experienced it. I think so many people in that the number one paranormal experience they've had is that experience with a loved one who's passed on. Not everybody does, but so many do. And I think everybody can if they open themselves to it. And that's what it's got to be. You got to kind of be open to it, is what I've learned in life. And when you are, and it does happen, it really does change you. And there's some powerful stuff we're talking about. Call in, guys, share your experiences or ask your questions of our guests. But let's go ahead and get back to the show. So, what I was saying is you have something a lot of other people don't have when it comes to a loss. You've been able to understand things a little more, maybe have this kind of connection. I want to get into how people you could enhance their ability, and if they want to try to reach out to a loved one, have some of the experiences you've had. I want you to try to help people, give some advice on that. But one of the things that we haven't talked about is, I saw the hardest loss for me, death-wise, has been my grandmother, who I was really close to, who passed away of Alzheimer's. And you talk about, I've had psychic stuff where I see it in my mind's eye. I really relate to that, seeing faces, pictures. I remember my wife, again, talking about predestination, the stuff I saw when I was a kid. Well, I remember the day I asked her out, I had this just clear picture in my head, or us at a camping spot and what clothes she was wearing, everything just shot in my head. Months later, here we are camping. She's wearing exactly what I saw in the picture, those things. But I saw my grandmother with my physical eyes in a mirror. Have you had that experience with Romy? Oh, I got to unmute you. I'm sorry. Hold on. That's my bad. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. It's a classic lockdown scenario, isn't it? You're on mute. Yeah, I have had that experience with Romy. I think twice, fairly early on. The first one was we used to have this sort of routine with her because she was so little. She's just a baby. The other kids would go to bed. I would have her. She was always with me, so I would feed her, and then my husband and I would be sitting on the sofa downstairs, and we would either put her in one of her little sort of bassinet things, or sometimes we would just have her asleep on us, or we were awake, I should stress, or maybe we'd put a little sort of nest between us on the sofa and we'd have her there. So she was constantly there. And then when we were ready to go to bed, we'd sort of had this sort of ritual where I would carry her up the stairs and I would lie her down in that bed and stay with her while my husband was kind of in the bathroom, and then he would kind of switch in with me so I could get to the bathroom, and so she wasn't on her own. And we had a little sort of cot next to the bed, but often she would be in bed with us while we were still awake. And the first 3 nights after she passed, I was walking up the stairs towards our bathroom, and our bedroom was to the right. And I walked up and I looked across, and I saw her in our bed, like as clear as anything. The first night I did question. I thought, okay, I am seeing things.
Yeah.
But then it happened another night, and I think by the 3rd or 4th night, at that point, I found it really upsetting. And I remember on fourth night or something, I remember I just said out loud, because I remember my husband saying to me, "Who are you talking to?" I said out loud, "Okay, stop. Please stop doing it. I can't. That's too much. I can't see it." And it did stop. I never saw it again. So I don't know again. It could have been in my mind. There's lots of explanations.
Or she, in a sense of a child, was trying to console you, like, I'm still here.
Of
It's
course,
all right.
That's what I believe these visitations are, from anyone,
Yeah.
child, adult, whichever spirit chooses to visit us in that way. Okay, let's put aside the whole paranormal hauntings, because that's something else,
Yeah.
right? But if it's one, I do believe that is what those visitations are about. Those people that we have loved are trying to reach out to us to say, look, I am okay. I'm here. I'm still here. I'm all right. At that point, for me, it was too early in my grief, and it was too overwhelming. It just told me what I didn't have. 3-4 nights ago, she had been in that bed. So that was difficult. So I asked for it to stop, and it stopped. And then I had another, probably a handful of times I feel I have physically seen her. I was at home alone, and a piece of music came on the radio that it was connected to an amazing artist in Australia, and I'm so embarrassed that her name's escaped me. But she basically she lost a son, and she's an artist, and she basically goes to the beach where she lives in Australia, and she writes the names of children who have died in the sand, and she makes these beautiful crystal and floral arrangements around them, and she photographs them. And then the tide comes in and washes everything away. And it's very beautiful artwork. I have a piece of her artwork with Romy's name. You can basically, I don't know if she does this still online, but you used to be able to, message her, and she would do your child's name for a small charge. Yeah. She donates a lot of her money to different charities also. She's wonderful. So anyway, I was watching something that she had done on YouTube, and there was a beautiful piece of music in there that made me feel quite emotional. And I walked into our conservatory at home, and I wanted to look at the garden, because we had lots of rose bushes given to us when Romy passed, and so we planted all of these in this little area. She has her own little garden, and I wanted to just kind of take a moment, and I was standing looking out at the garden, and I felt this overwhelming sense in the room. It wasn't just of a presence in the room. It was just, I don't know what it was. It was like an energy. It was really strong. And I turned round, and she was there. She was in the room. I saw her in the little sort of chair we used to put her in, smiling. Literally, it was as if she was physically there. It was really real. And this time I didn't find it upsetting. I was I felt, really overjoyed. Like, oh my God, you're there. And I must have been, it felt like a long time, but in reality, it was probably like 5 seconds. But I remember it didn't just go. I was like, just
time
staring
slows.
at her. Yeah, really, I think it does. And then I just I think I turned away, or I glanced away for a minute, and then she was gone. But that felt very real. So I would say that, yes, that was an instance in which I really did see her. It felt like that to me.
Well, that's why I say, as a paranormal investigator, people tell me the haunting stories and the ghost stories, and I love it. I love it. But to me, the most powerful are these stories of loved ones that come through, because it's the most amazing physical manifestations. My own personal experience, and so many others that have shared their experiences on the show or just through life I've met. These are some, physical, seeing people physically there, or people physically touching you, and nobody's scared. It's a feeling of love, overwhelming love. It's the most powerful experiences.
It feels as if your loved one has just walked into the room. I had that. I saw my grandfather when I was very young. It felt like a dream, but then it wasn't a dream. I woke up, I sat up, I could see him. And it felt the same as if my dad had just walked into my room to tell me it was time to wake up. It was that's the feeling that accompanies it always, in my experience. As you say, a feeling of love and joy. Like, oh, there you are. I've missed you. It's that feeling.
That's the feeling I had about when I saw my son before I ever knew my son, before he was born. Was that same exact feeling. It had nothing to do with death. But it was that exact same feeling that I had when I saw my grandmother. It's that overwhelming, just knowing of love. It's just, I don't know another way. It's wordless.
I think to address your question of like what can people do if they want to make a connection, there, I could sit and describe various sort of different ways of opening up to spirit. There's a whole sort of side of that. I've been told many times over the years that meditation is good. Is my husband meditates. He's very good at meditating. I am not. I have my own versions of doing that. But something that I do recall that we did in psychic development classes over the years was a form of that. I do like a guided visualization, and I had a really excellent tutor who used to do those with us. And you can buy, you can access these online. You used to be able to buy them on like CDs and whatever, but I know that's ancient.
CDs, what?
What? Yeah, my kids don't know what they are. You can access them easily online. I'm sure there are loads of great apps or even just free ones that you can access. But a guided visualization, I think, helps you to open your mind. So it stops what I think what they call the alpha brainwaves, which are the brainwaves that tell you like, oh, well, is it time to wake up? What am I doing today? Do I need to buy shopping? Are my kids okay? It sort of dulls those and allows your mind to open. And that's when most people have what they would describe as a spiritual experience. So as I say, I'm not great at meditation, but if you are, then that is definitely, to sit quietly for a few moments, just focus on your breath and maybe open your mind, just close your eyes. And I always find myself, I'm sure it is my imagination, but I always find myself in a garden. I can see like a real sort of English cottage with a walled garden. And I always visualize myself walking down 3 or 4 steps into this garden. And when I come into the garden, invariably I see my grandmother, my grandfather. I once saw them with Romy. They were holding her. So again, and you have to also, again, it comes to acceptance. I think you also have to be aware of, you have to let go of your preconceptions. So, people often say to me, well, I've never had any experiences like that. They just don't happen to me. But then later in the conversation, they'll say, oh, I see a robin. I don't know if do you call a robin in the States? It's a bird. We have here a little bird with a red breast.
Yeah.
I see a robin at like really weird times of year. Always on my grandfather's birthday. And you think, well, then, that is an experience. And I think people are embarrassed because they think that in order to have had, a spiritual experience, it has to be a huge, like, I've seen the angel Gabriel or, and I have had some.
It's the little things.
But more often than not, exactly, it's the tiny little things, or like, a picture moving. You have to notice stuff. And there's a fine line here, because you don't want to turn into that person who is running around saying, oh, I found a feather, oh my God, it's my mother. Sometimes feathers just turn up because, somebody's shaken a duvet, or sometimes there's a practical reason for it. But if you are sort of open and alert to things, unusual things moving in your house, knowing that you've put something somewhere and then it being in a different place, and you're pretty sure that nobody else in your house has moved it there and you haven't, and those things happening, fairly frequently over time. But the simplest way, I would say, is actually just ask. I have been led to believe that if you talk to your loved ones, either in your head or out loud, they can hear us. I often ask for help. My oldest son started high school last week. He's been at a very small school, and he's going from a small to a really huge school, and and he has additional needs. And I asked, in my head, I sent him to school with spirit guides, Archangel Michael,
whatever protection you get before you send him out to the wolves.
I didn't tell him that, but I asked in my head, and you know what? Against the odds, he came back and he had a really great day at school. It could have been really difficult for him. So I don't know. I take it. If it's a win, I'll take it, and I don't try and overlook for explanations. But I do think open up, give yourself some peace and quiet. Open up, ask. When you're going to sleep, that's a really good time to try and, if you're really missing somebody, and you're just to say, look, even if I can't remember the dream, could you come and visit me? Like, please, can I see you? Because I've woken up a few times where I've thought, I've had a conversation with my grandmother. I just know I have.
Oh, I did. Yeah, me too.
I've had conversations with my late father-in-law, who I never met. He passed before I met my husband. But before our older daughter, Layla, was born, we both woke up one morning and we'd both had the same dream about my father-in-law.
Oh, wow.
We'd been talking about different things, but I woke up and I said, oh my God, I dreamt about your dad. That's really weird. And he was talking to me about the baby. And my husband said, well, wow, I dreamt about him too. So I do think that things happen in our dreams and that we can ask for advice or help. And I think if it's within the realms of possibility, again, I don't think anyone's going to, give you a multi-million-pound lottery win, but that's
maybe
if it's maybe you can ask. But I think if you're asking, like, look, could you please help my son at school today? Or look, I've been feeling really low because I really miss you. Could you give me something? I need to feel that you're okay. Generally, something will turn up, and then you have to kind of be a little bit aware and look for stuff. Often it's things that you connect with your loved one, as you say, the little things. It is the little things that are meaningful.
Well, I think that's why I said when we're coming back from a break is you have to be open to it. And sometimes people in grief, they're totally closed down from it. They're closed off from it all, and you can't blame them. But at some point, maybe they do start to open up or notice things. I mean, I try not to be one of those people too. Like I said, it's a fine line to jump at everything means this or anything. My way I've looked at it is listen to that little inner voice that says, look at this. This is something. This means something. I just recently had it come up in my memories. And I should have shared it. I forgot because I've talked about it on the show so many times, and I was going to share it and I forgot. But it came up in my Facebook memories. This video I recorded, where my son was having a complete meltdown because of his sensory problem on a field trip out in Chicago. And we're waiting at this train. And my wife's thing with her grandmother, who had passed not long before this, was she used to joke. I was like, oh, it's a red jay. Well, it's a cardinal. That was their joke. It was the red jay cardinal thing. And right after her grandmother's passing, we'd see this cardinal in our yard. Well, here he is having a total meltdown. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I am the worst parent alone without my wife. And please somebody, help me here. He's having a total meltdown because they're at this train station, too much noise, too much stuff. And lo and behold, here comes this cardinal. And my son loves monsters and dinosaurs and fights between all that stuff. And this cardinal comes up on the train tracks and he catches my son's attention, and it starts fighting with this praying mantis on the train tracks. I recorded it all, but I maybe it's far reaching. I mean, some people are like, oh, you're just reaching, but I felt that was Mimi, his grandmother, my wife's grandmother, his great grandmother.
I would go with that. Absolutely.
She came in and saved the day because she's like, how do I take this kid's mind off all this stuff? Oh, let's have a cardinal fight her bird fight a praying mantis. Little things like that.
I get you. And I've been the same. Often I've described things and I just think, well, this sounds stupid. Or people are thinking, well, you just told me you're a clairvoyant or you've had all these experiences. What, you're telling me about a bird? But you know what? If you're in the experience, and again, like you say, you listen to that little inner voice, you just know. There's no other way of describing it. And, honestly, I'm a big believer. If you ask. If you ask, you're being open. Ask for help, ask for advice. I've often said that to people that I know, just usually the best time often is when you're going to sleep because you're kind of in that, that phase. And then very often I've talked to people who have had this sort of experience and they've said, you know what, I did ask and, I went to sleep. I didn't notice anything unusual about my sleep, but you know what, when I woke up, I just felt better.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, then, to me, I'm like, well, I'll take that. I don't need to prove it. I don't need to unravel it or find out who said what to who and what happened and was it real or was it a dream. It's like if you wake up and you feel better, it's got to be good. It's and what it's worth, I believe that something does go on while we're asleep. Who knows whether we visit other astral planes or make connections with our spirit guides or people who have passed. I think those things are all possible because I can't prove that they're not.
I know I've had dreams about relatives that passed away and I feel they're real. They're not just dreams because there's a feeling to the dream. There's a feeling to it that's completely different than normal dreams. I've had it with, I dreamt it after my, I had many dreams of my grandmother after she's passed. Some of them were I definitely just dreams, nightmares, like her last breaths haunted me there for a while in my dreams. But I've had some dreams where like when her sister passed away, I had a dream of them two, both dressed in black. It was long after she passed away, and them like just hugging me on a couch. But it felt I could smell both of them. I could feel. There's such a realism to it.
Yeah. No, I've had similar experiences where you can feel the person hugging you, and you can smell the perfume, or I do. I think these things are possible. I don't know. There's a lot of people out there who've had those experiences, so I don't know. Either we're all completely nuts, or or something. I just think you have to be open to the possibility that there might be something other than what we can see in front of us. Life is a lot richer if you're open to possibilities, I think.
Right. And I feel like so many people are, we're again, technology, like I love technology. It's got the show going. I got technology all around me, but we're so focused in on it. We're missing, I'm afraid we're going to miss this aspect of life, the spiritual aspect so much.
Yes, that is very fair. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
These scenes you would not, they're like the cardinal and the train tracks, people might blow that off as nothing. And then you just lost a precious moment. You didn't understand how precious it was, because this is something from the afterlife, these connections. I think that's why, I love doing this show, is to open people's minds up to these ideas that there's so much more going on around us we don't even understand, especially when it comes to afterlife.
Actually, it reminds me of an experience I had a couple of years ago. Actually, a very good friend of mine passed very, very young. She's only 41. She has a young daughter. I'm very close friends with her husband. I was friends with him first, and then came to know her. And so they are. She was, and he is, a practicing Catholic. And so, we didn't have a lot of conversations about spirituality, because I completely respected that. They have their beliefs in here. We laughed a lot when they asked me to be godmother to their daughter, because I said, you know me a long time. You do know, and they're like, yeah, we do. But so long as you don't mind standing up in our church. And I said, no, of course not. I respect your church. Of course I'll. So that was funny. But after she, when she was terminally ill, and I did see her before she passed, and I asked myself, should I? What I really, really wanted to say to her, and I didn't, is I wanted to say to her, look, obviously I'm your daughter's godmother. I'll step up. When you're not here, I'll be here for your daughter. But I would be anyway, but I've made you a promise, and I want you to know that that's an important promise to me. And I wanted to say, so when you get to where you're going, can you look after my daughter? I wanted to say, like, could you please look out for Romy? But I didn't say it to her because of her. I respected her religious belief, and that's not something I think she would have been very comfortable discussing. And then two things happened after she passed. The day that she passed, I was somewhere in my house. I can't actually recall when, and I felt water hit the back of my hand. It was the weirdest experience. I've never had anything like it before or since. And I thought, oh God, we've got a leak. And I looked up. There's nothing. I checked. I went upstairs. I was like checking floorboards. It's really weird. And then I went into a different part of the house, and I was going about my business doing something else. And I got it again, like splash of water on the back of my hand. Really weird. And I suddenly had this thought of my friend. She popped into my head, and I thought, it's really odd. And I messaged an acquaintance of mine who's a medium. And I said, just want to ask you, have you ever heard of this? And she said, actually, I have heard she said, I understand that's a pretty common phenomena, feeling like a drop of water on your hand in particular, or forearm, being a sign from somebody in the spirit world. I thought, well, that's it. And I said, well, can I ask you, that the person who passed, she was a really devout Catholic, and that wouldn't have fallen with it. And she said, it doesn't matter once you pass on. She said, it does not matter what you believed, what you practiced. There's a higher belief system even than that when we get to where we're going. So that was interesting. And then a medium did actually give me a few weeks after that. I was talking to Craig Morris, actually, who I've come to know very well. And he said, can I just ask you, if you recently, somebody recently passed a spirit, would have been a younger woman with a daughter. Like, yes. And I knew this was my friend, and he described her personality really well. And then he said, she's got 2 daughters, right? 2 girls. And I said, no. So he's like, that's really weird. She's talking about 2 girls, 2 daughters. And he couldn't get to the next stage. But for me, that was enough. I thought, you know what? I never said it to her, but she was basically, I felt that message was very much
like your daughter's here too.
Your daughter, you've got mine, I've got yours. That's always what I felt. He kind of, Craig didn't give me those precise words, but he got as near as damn it. And that was pretty impressive, given that she never believed any of this stuff.
I want to real quick apologize to the audience for the phone line tonight. Besides everything else resetting on my whole computer system and everything, I just realized my phone line signed out completely for some reason. So it wasn't even signed in tonight. And I just saw a notification come up on my other phone for it. I'm like, okay, that's why I didn't get any phone calls. So if you were calling in, I apologize tonight. That is last thing I didn't check was the phone lines because I had so much else going on. Sorry. That's why we didn't get phone calls.
Oh.
I am so sorry. And I apologize to you too, because I'm sure we could have had some great phone calls. And I just realized it's been signed out and we're at the end of the show. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It was a great conversation night. And I'm sure we had some lovely phone calls if I had checked that my phones weren't signed in. But I want to thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Jason, for having me. And I do so sorry for being late. Just added to your general stress level.
It's all right. It's all right.
Enjoyed talking to you, and thank you so much for having me. It's been brilliant.
And just so people know, they can find your book. Any particular place you prefer people to try to find your book? I should ask.
Oh, thank you. I believe it's sold widely. I guess Amazon is the main link to point people to. It's there. It has a very distinctive cover. The truth
Hold
inside.
on 1 second. Keep it up. Keep it up there. There we go.
Okay. There it is. That's not straight. There we go. Amazon is the obvious place to find it. You can also find it through, I believe you can find links to it through my publisher, John Hunt Publishing, O Books, the imprint who I publish with.
Well, thank you so much again for sharing your powerful story tonight, your experiences with this. I hope it helps people. I'm sorry again, I couldn't take your calls tonight because I screwed up. But hey, at least we got the show going. Thank you so much. Love to hear about your next book coming out. I know it's probably something totally different, like you said, but love to hear about it. So stay in touch. Thank you so much, Ali. We will be back next Sunday. Hopefully no technical problems aside and phone lines signed in and open next week, I hope, with our guest Corby Mitlead, who is a psychic medium. So you call in and we'll have the psychic medium experience. We've had many different ones. This will be Corby's first time on the show, so we'll see how she does. And, it's not a test, but we're going to be getting into all that. You guys call in next week for readings. I think she was doing readings. Maybe we'll find out. I'll put all that information there. But next week, same bad time, same bad channel. 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Central, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific time. Check it out. Don't forget to follow and subscribe on Facebook and YouTube, especially if you want show announcements. Find the Facebook page. It's the best place to get announcements for the show. All right, guys. Thanks so much. See you next week. Have a great night.